Chapter 1990, Netherworld Ring, 3. You want to create your own Netherworld Ring, Ling Yan said with realization. Yi Qingtang nodded. I was wondering how I could stir things up between the Ancient Yu clan and the Crimson League before, but now I have an idea, she said with a smile. You're planning to let word out that the Ancient Yu clan has stolen the Netherworld Ring? Yi Qingtang wasn't surprised at all that Ling Yan had managed to guess her plan. He was extraordinarily intelligent and could easily think of the same plan that she had. That's right, the real Netherworld Ring is in the hands of the Holy Lord of Shadows. Since the Crimson League is demanding it of me, I'll make them a fake one. But it can never land in their hands, so I'll let out word about the location of the Netherworld Ring and the fact that I'm going to move it elsewhere, and you're going to cause some damage to the Ancient Yu clan with Ming Di before this. Ling Yan took the words right out of her mouth. That's right. I'll make sure to make it unbearable for them but won't push them to their limits. Yi Qingtang loved speaking with Ling Yan. He understood everything she was thinking of. It was undeniably relaxing to speak with one she didn't have to explain anything to. Once the dissatisfaction the Ancient Yu clan has towards the Temple of Shadows increases, they will want to make some trouble for us without attacking directly. Miss Yi, you're going to be killing two birds with one stone. It's a great plan. Ling Yan looked at her with admiration. She didn't notice his smile at all and only asked him to quickly draw the ring out. It's not hard for me to draw it out, but there are some things that we can't let people from the outside find out. The undead clan within the Temple of Shadows is one of them and we should hide them. Why not let me help you make a fake Netherworld Ring? Ling Yan said. You can do that? Yi Qingtang raised her eyebrows slightly. I know a little. Yi Qingtang had faith in him since he had suggested this himself. To avoid any more unnecessary ramifications, she let Ling Yan create the fake Netherworld Ring in her own room. Because of this, he went in and out of her room more often and was pale and sweating profusely every time he left. All this was seen by Xue Fu and the rest, but they interpreted it far differently. Even the 8 tribe leaders who didn't particularly like Ling Yan patted his shoulder in sympathy after seeing him. As Ling Yan was busy creating the fake Netherworld Ring, Yi Qingtang brought Ming Di around the central mainland to attack the Ancient Yu clan. She didn't dare attack them when they were in groups. But when they had first started slaughtering the different ancient clans, they had sent out many young people to do the job. So she attacked them together with Ming Di and wiped them out without much effort at all. As she always left before they could get word out and send for reinforcements, the Ancient Yu clan's army always missed them. This angered the Ancient Yu clan so much that they were this close to declaring war on the Temple of Shadows. Elder, the Temple of Shadows is too much. We let them go that time, but this is the 5th time they are attacking us. The Holy Lord of Shadows and Ming Di have been foiling our plans. Elder, are we just going to sit still and endure it? One of the wardens fumed as he heard the report. Chapter 1991, Theft 1. From his high position, Elder Mo's expression was dark. Apart from the matter with the Jiang family, the Temple of Shadows had never interfered with the actions of the Ancient Yu clan, which was one of the reasons the Ancient Yu clan could leave them alone in the meantime. But the Temple of Shadows had been disturbing this peace recently. Other than the ancient clans that have sought protection from the Temple of Shadows, how many more are there in the central mainland that we have yet to destroy? Elder Mo asked one of the wardens. About 7 to 8. And how much more time do we need to find all of them? He asked. About half a month. They are hiding well and we currently only have a few leads on them, the warden steeled himself and answered. Elder Mo kept quiet for a moment before saying, we have to deal with the Temple of Shadows sooner or later. But we must wipe out the other ancient clans first to make sure that they don't seize the opportunity to escape when we are in battle. Once we have obtained the spirit of chaos fragments from those ancient clans, the Temple of Shadows will be our next target. Reluctance showed on the wardens' faces, but they dared not oppose Elder Mo. The master had tasked the great elders with finding the spirit of chaos fragments, which meant that they had absolute authority in that regard. But it was at this moment that one of the elders standing silently in a corner spoke up. It's admirable that Elder Mo is taking into consideration the grand scheme of things. But even if we don't declare war on the Temple of Shadows, we can't let them run rampant as well. Elder Mo turned to the elder speaking. The elder walked forward and continued. If the Temple of Shadows can meddle with our affairs, shouldn't we do the same for them? I heard that the Temple of Shadows will be transferring a precious Dharma artifact tomorrow. Why not use this opportunity to retaliate? A Dharma artifact? Which artifact? Elder Mo asked. The Netherworld Ring. Elder Mo was stunned for a second. The Netherworld Ring? The Netherworld Ring was a holy artifact, and there were few artifacts in the central mainland which could match it. According to legend, the Netherworld Ring had been left behind by a heavenly demon. Many people had expended great effort to find the ring, but it had ultimately landed in the hands of the Temple of Shadows. Is this information accurate? Elder Mo asked. I'm not sure, but I've confirmed that the Temple of Shadows has been preparing manpower and horses, which means that they are preparing to transport something important. I can bring some men over to take a look. If it's not the Netherworld Ring, we will find another way to slow them down. But if it is indeed the Netherworld Ring, we can strike an even greater blow to them to make sure that we are not at a disadvantage, the elder said. Elder Mo contemplated this for a moment. Now that the influence of the Temple of Shadows was fading, all they had to do to create trouble was to cross the boundary to the Temple of Shadows and start a battle there. Indeed, this was a great opportunity. All right. Elder Mo agreed. Regardless of whether it was real or not, they would be able to strike a blow. Yu Qiong, if it really is the Netherworld Ring, make sure to bring enough people to take it from them. After that, I will suggest to the Master to let you enter the Mixed Realms so that you can become even more powerful, said Elder Mo. Chapter 1992, Theft 2. It was Yu Qiong who had spoken up before, and his eyes flashed with greed as he heard Elder Mo's words. I will make sure to do my best and not let Elder Mo down. With a nod of satisfaction, Elder Mo gestured for him to rejoin the other two wardens to carry out the task. Yu Qiong began discussing with the two wardens after leaving the main hall, but the two wardens were extremely arrogant and didn't take Yu Qiong's words to heart at all, merely telling him to not worry, and that they would take care of everything. Rejected and treated as an outsider, Yu Qiong could feel their prejudice against him. He retreated humbly with a glint in his eyes. As per Yi Qingtang's plans, he had returned to the ancient Yu clan, but his status was no longer as great as before. The ancient Yu clan's power was improving by leaps and bounds, but his power had been reduced greatly due to the age reversal curse. He had made his way back after great difficulty only to be reinstated in a position not of a high-ranking elder but as someone even lower than the wardens. The people who had once respected him were all now climbing over his head, which made him grit his teeth in despair. Wasn't he the one who had recommended Elder Mo to enter the ancient Yu clan? But no. Elder Mo was treating him like a pitiful dog to be kept by his side. Looking at the two wardens discussing the attack on the Temple of Shadows, a cold smile flashed across Yu Qiong's face. After making sure he was alone, he secretly crushed a spirit stone in his sleeve. Back in the Temple of Shadows, Yi Qingtang smiled as she saw the spirit stones on her table shatter. All arrangements are in order in the ancient Yu clan? Ling Yan asked as he looked at her. She nodded. The pieces are all in place, and all we have to do now is rely on the performance of Xue Fu and the rest. Is your Netherworld Ring completed? Without saying anything, Ling Yan placed a pure black ring in her hands. The moment the ring touched her, a wave of coldness washed over her palm, and she stared at the ring in shock. What do you think? Yi Qingtang took a few more glances at the fake Netherworld Ring. She had asked Ling Yan repeatedly whether he was sure of the design when he had drawn it out. He had affirmed it over and over again. The ring that she was looking at was identical to the one on the paper. Even the feeling of it on her skin was as Ling Yan had told her. It looks exactly like the real one. Ling Yan smiled and said, it merely looks like the real one. But since the ancient Yu clan don't know much about it, they probably won't be able to tell that it's a fake. However, if it lands into the hands of the Crimson League, they will be able to tell that it's not the real one. Yi Qingtang looked at him, a nagging feeling at the back of her mind that his words were not as simple as they seemed. But she had no time to worry about all of this now. Now that she had the fake Netherworld Ring, she quickly went to gather the group she was sending to the Frost Abyss. Yi Qingtang wasn't planning on going herself or sending Ming even though she wanted to prevent the ancient Yu clan from stealing the ring. After all, this was below their station. When all preparations were done, she placed the netherworld ring in a beautiful box and handed it over to Xuefu, who was leading a group of the undead clan to the Frost Abyss. It was the last day the person in the black robes had given them. Chapter 1993, Theft 3. In order to show her sincerity towards the Crimson League, she had included a few other gifts as well. The Temple of Shadows was quite a distance away from the ancient Yu clan. Xuefu was treating the netherworld ring as though it was real and transporting it carefully to the Frost Abyss. But just as they were halfway through their journey, Xuefu suddenly stopped the group and looked sharply at the road in front of them. There was a group of people waiting for them on the wide road. Is that the ancient Yu clan? The goblin tribe leader who had followed on this journey stepped forward in surprise. Xuefu frowned. His heart sank as he looked at the menacing expressions of the ancient Yu clan. At the same time, Yu Qiong and the two wardens that he had brought with him saw the group from the Temple of Shadows as well. Their eyes lit up. I guess the information was right after all. The Temple of Shadows really is transporting something. The Guardian is also here personally, which means that it must be something important. One of the wardens looked at the cart full of beautiful boxes. Go! Without hesitating after spotting their target, the ancient Yu clan rushed forward with the few strong men they had brought along. Xuefu screamed silently in apprehension as he saw the ancient Yu clan make a move. Ancient Yu clan, you dare? What a joke! Why would we be scared? I might be able to spare your lives if you leave your things with us, the ancient Yu clan warden spat out with a cold laugh. We are required to transport this elsewhere. Don't you dare steal it from us. Xuefu shouted. And where are you sending this to? No matter where you were planning on going, this belongs to us now. There is nothing in the world the ancient Yu clan doesn't dare to take. The skirmish started in an instant. Even though the Temple of Shadows had the advantage in numbers, the youths that the ancient Yu clan had brought were extremely powerful. Even Ming Wang wouldn't be a match for them, let alone the wardens that were there as well. In the blink of an eye, the group from the Temple of Shadows had been beaten into the ground. Xuefu was giving his all to resist but could only watch as an ancient Yu clan youth took the cart from in front of him and brought it back to the ancient Yu clan camp. Guardian, what should we do? Xuefu narrowed his eyes. He knew that their strength was completely mismatched and that within the Temple of Shadows, only Ming Di and the Holy Lord of Shadows were a match for these youths. The items had already been stolen. They would only die if they continued to resist. Retreat. After weighing his options, Xuefu could only choose to retreat. Seeing the Temple of Shadows retreat pathetically, the two ancient Yu clan wardens laughed loudly. Who cares about the Temple of Shadows? They were beaten just like everyone else. Yu Qiong, who was at the side, glanced at the arrogant wardens and secretly gave a cold laugh. Even though he wasn't sure why Yi Qingtang had wanted him to spread this news and let the ancient Yu clan steal the items, he knew that she wouldn't let them take advantage of this easily. The ancient Yu clan returned with the cart full of loot. The two wardens opened the beautiful box to see what was inside. They laughed gleefully as they saw countless jewels inside. Their eyes brightened as they opened the last box and saw the black ring laying silently inside. The Netherworld Ring. Chapter 1994, Truth and Lies, 1. The two wardens had been doubting the information that Yu Qiong had given them and hadn't been sure whether the Temple of Shadows was really transporting the Netherworld Ring. But now, their faces lit up in glee as they held the Netherworld Ring in their hands. They quickly put the Netherworld Ring into their pocket and prepared to take credit for it. The Temple of Shadows has suffered a huge loss this time. They must have never even dreamed that the Netherworld Ring would land in our hands, one of the wardens said proudly. A guard standing to the side remarked, "We wouldn't have done it without your wits." Once the Holy Lord of Shadows hears about this, she will be so furious she won't be able to resist coming to fight us, a warden said coldly. Yu Qiong, who had been ignored all this time, stared at the Dharma treasure-filled cart with doubt in his eyes. He had originally thought that Yi Qingtang let him leak this information so that they could ambush the ancient Yu clan. He didn't expect for them to really steal these items. Even the Netherworld Ring had fallen into the hands of the ancient Yu clan. He didn't understand what the Holy Lord of Shadows was thinking of at all. The group from the ancient Yu clan returned proudly this time, with the two wardens fighting to take credit for everything. Elder Mo glanced at the Netherworld ring and the other Dharma treasures with a strange look in his eyes. "Have you checked all the Dharma treasures properly?" he asked. "Don't worry, Elder. We've inspected everything carefully and have not found any abnormalities. They're all fine Dharma treasures, but we've never seen the Netherworld ring before. We've only seen it in pictures and have never touched it before." One of the wardens stepped forward and said. They were afraid that the Temple of Shadows had tricked them at first but confirmed that the treasures were real after inspecting them. Elder Mo didn't trust the wardens that easily and personally went to inspect the Dharma treasure. He came to the same conclusion as them. Saving the Netherworld ring for last, he placed it in his hands and felt the coldness from it. His eyes shone with delight. Just a touch of the Netherworld ring will make you feel immensely cold, and not the coldness of temperature, but the coldness of your soul. Try it. Upon hearing this, the two wardens walked up one by one to place the ring in their hands. Somehow, this coldness made them even happier. They hadn't touched it at all after obtaining it and had left it in its box all this while. Elder Mo, you mean, this Netherworld ring is real? Elder Mo took the ring back from them and nodded. That's right. I will be sure to inform the master of your efforts tomorrow. They had retaliated against the Temple of Shadows, obtained many Dharma treasures and also gotten their hands on the Netherworld ring. It was a great victory for the ancient Yu clan. Thank you, Elder Mo. Elder Mo instructed them to put the Dharma treasures into the treasure house and turned his sights on Yu Qiong. Yu Qiong, you've done well this time. Yu Qiong stepped forward and said politely, "It's my honor to be able to serve my clan." Seemingly satisfied with his attitude, Elder Mo gave a slight nod before he praised him briefly and sent him out. Chapter 1995. Truth and Lies. 2. A holy artifact as powerful as the Netherworld ring had to be passed on to the clan leader. Elder Mo had no intention of keeping it. Just as the ancient Yu clan was celebrating their successful robbing of the Temple of Shadows, the deadline that the Crimson League had given the temple passed silently. Lady Ghost and several other people were busy organizing the latest information within the Temple of Shadows when a loud sound came from the outside. Lady Ghost's expression changed slightly, but before she could step out of the main hall, a gust of wind blasted in. "Mo Yao, get out here at once." Bai Ji rushed into the main hall on the black mist. Her beautiful face was contorted in anger. "Lady Bai Ji, what do you think you're doing?" Lady Ghost recognized her but had no idea what she was doing here. Without even looking at Lady Ghost, Bai Ji raised her hand and a tendril of smoke flew towards Lady Ghost and wrapped around her neck, lifting her into the air. "Mo Yao, you'd better get out here at once, or I will make sure to slaughter the entire undead clan in the Temple of Shadows and raze this entire place to the ground." Bai Ji exclaimed coldly as a strong force enveloped the Temple of Shadows. Her voice was transmitted to every corner of the Temple of Shadows. The ancient clan who had suffered in her hands all trembled as they heard her angry voice, and none of them dared leave their spot. This devil wasn't someone they could deal with. Under the wrath of Bai Ji, Yi Qingtang walked out of the temple to Ming Wang and the 8 tribe leaders. The faces of the 8 tribe leaders all drooped as they saw Lady Ghost in the clutches of Bai Ji. "Bai Ji, what is the meaning of this?" Bai Ji looked at Yi Qingtang, who was in the lead, her expression extremely frosty. "What is the meaning of this? Mo Yao, this should be a question for you. Your 7 days are out, yet you still refuse to hand over the Netherworld ring. Do you really think that the Crimson League wouldn't dare to touch the Temple of Shadows? Bai Ji, don't you dare come here spewing lies at us. Our Holy Lord has already sent the Guardian to personally deliver the Netherworld ring to the Frost Abyss yesterday," the demon tribe leader retorted. "What a joke. You think we're just going to take your words as truth? Why haven't I seen the Netherworld ring then?" Bai Ji sneered coldly before she looked straight at Yi Qingtang and continued, "The Crimson League demands the Netherworld ring. Since you are not willing to hand it over nicely, don't blame me for going all out." Seeing that Bai Ji was about to make a move, Yi Qingtang, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly spoke. "You didn't receive the Netherworld ring? What rubbish are you spouting? Why else would I come here then?" Bai Ji said with a cold smile. Yi Qingtang pretended to have a confused look on her face. Bai Ji, I don't care what you think, but since I've already promised to deliver the Netherworld ring to the Crimson League, I wouldn't go back on my word. Do you really think that I would destroy my relationship with the Crimson League just for the Netherworld ring? She paused for a moment before continuing. I did send several men off to deliver the Netherworld ring to the Frost Abyss yesterday. Perhaps they mistook the time. You can go back to the Frost Abyss to see for yourself. Do you think I'm an idiot? Bai Ji asked. Whether you believe me is up to you. The Temple of Shadows is here after all, and it's not going anywhere, Yi Qingtang said. You can ask around yourself. It's my loss if you actually find the ring. When Bai Ji saw how calm and confident Yi Qingtang was, a sliver of doubt entered her mind. Chapter 1996, Truth and Lies. 3. Even though the Holy Lord of Shadows and her had been at odds for the longest time, she couldn't deny that the Holy Lord of Shadows had always kept her word. I'll give you one last chance to defend yourself. Bai Ji scoffed and took out a voice transmission stone. She drew a border with her hand so Yi Qingtang and the rest couldn't hear her and seemed to be using it to contact the other two of the alien race. The demon tribe leader twisted his mouth in contempt as he looked at Bai Ji talking to her comrades. I think the Crimson League is probably trying to push the blame onto us. I saw with my own two eyes the Holy Lord placing the Netherworld ring into the box and instructing Xue Fu to go with it. How could it not have arrived in the Frost Abyss yet? The other tribe leaders were all thinking the same thing. Although Yi Qingtang didn't say anything, she was secretly overjoyed. Seeing that Bai Ji had come here personally, the ancient Yu clan must have succeeded. If nothing else went wrong, Xue Fu and the rest should be coming back to the Temple of Shadows soon. The show was just about to begin. She had thrown in many Dharma treasures to ensure that the ancient Yu clan would believe that it was the real Netherworld ring. She hoped that they wouldn't let her down. Bai Ji brought down the border after a while and threw them an impassive glance. Thinking that she had already received the Netherworld ring, the demon tribe leader was about to speak. But in the next second, Bai Ji had flung Lady Ghost towards Yi Qingtang. She quickly raised her hand and saved her. The 8 tribe leaders all watched on tensely. Bai Ji, what are you doing? What? Bai Ji laughed in anger as she lifted her chin slightly and looked at Yi Qingtang. Mo Yao, I really misjudged you. I didn't think that you would learn how to lie so smoothly after going to the first domain. Bai Ji's eyes changed as she continued. No one has sent the Netherworld ring to the Frost Abyss and my comrades haven't received any ring. What else do you have to say? Seeing that Bai Ji was about to cause mass destruction, Yi Qingtang broke out in cold sweat. If she were to let loose here, she was afraid that Ming Di was probably the only one who could deal with her. Xue Fu, please don't let me down. Hurry back. Right at this critical moment, a pathetic figure suddenly appeared in the main hall. Yi Qingtang's heart leaped with joy as she saw the people approaching. My savior! You came just in time. A downtrodden Xue Fu rushed into the main hall and saw the angry Bai Ji ready to attack. He froze in shock. Guardian Xue Fu. You came back right in time. Tell this crazy woman, Lady Bai Ji, that you've already sent it to the Frost Abyss, the demon tribe leader said. The goblin tribe spoke up as well. Lady Bai Ji, please calm down. I instructed Guardian Xue Fu to deliver the Netherworld ring himself. He's back now and can tell you so himself. A suspicious glint appeared in Bai Ji's eyes as she observed the group of people, but she decided to wait and see. What other excuses could they cook up? They couldn't run anyway. You've delivered the Netherworld ring? Bai Ji turned to ask Xue Fu. Xue Fu's face was white. He looked at Bai Ji and then back at Yi Qingtang and without saying a word, ran towards her. Holy Lord, I deserve to die. The Netherworld ring and the other Dharma treasures were stolen by the ancient Yu clan on the way to the Frost Abyss. Chapter 1997, Sowing Discord. 1. The main hall fell into a deathly silence. Bai Ji suddenly laughed as she looked at Yi Qingtang. Mo Yao, you're really surprising me more and more with your audacity. You actually put up such an elaborate show just to keep the Netherworld ring for yourself. Yi Qingtang looked back at her. It's a show all right, just not the way you're thinking. Retracting her gaze, she turned her sights on Xue Fu. What happened? Shui Fu didn't dare keep anything to himself and spilled all of the details about the ancient Yu clan's theft. He had no idea that the ancient Yu clan would attack them. The ancient Yu clan and the Temple of Shadows had been at odds for the longest time. They rarely crossed paths with each other apart from this encounter, which was why Shui Fu had never expected them to be attacked. Yet he had no idea how many times his master and Ming Di had provoked the ancient Yu clan. Meanwhile, Bai Ji looked on coldly from the side, not taking into account Shui Fu's words at all. This is coming from your mouth and you're on the same side. Of course you can say anything you want. Without speaking, Yi Qingtang walked over to Shui Fu. Under Shui Fu's guilty gaze, she raised her hand and took off the earring on his ear, then passed it to Bai Ji. You can take a look yourself if you don't believe him. What's that? Bai Ji asked as she looked at the earring in her hand. Shui Fu was confused as well. Yi Qingtang had given him that earring before he left and he had thought that it was her reward to him. I knew that you wouldn't believe that I would hand over the Netherworld ring. I was also worried that the Crimson League would deny it after I handed over the Netherworld ring, so I used the Drawing Spirit Stone to make this and gave it to Shui Fu, Yi Qingtang said. The Drawing Spirit Stone was one which could record everything it saw. But it was extremely rare, and she had only heard of and had never seen it before in her previous life. Ling Yan had given her this Drawing Spirit Stone. She suspected that he had already foresaw all of this and knew that the Drawing Spirit Stone would be useful here. That damn sly demon. Bai Ji had obviously heard of the Drawing Spirit Stone. It could only be used once and would become useless after that. The doubt was evident on her face as she opened the Spirit Stone. In the next second, an image suddenly appeared in the main hall of the Temple of Shadows. In the floating scene, Yi Qingtang put the Netherworld ring into the beautiful box and personally handed it to Shui Fu. But after leaving the Temple of Shadows, Shui Fu and the group were indeed ambushed by the ancient Yu clan. Everything that happened next was as Shui Fu had said. Bai Ji's face got darker and darker as she heard the ancient Yu clan warden proclaiming that there was no one they dared not rob in the world. How daring of them to steal something from the Crimson League. Bai Ji smiled as a steely glint flashed in her eyes. How dare someone from the First Domain steal from the Crimson League? They were asking for death. Yi Qingtang felt relieved as she looked at Bai Ji's reaction. But she remained calm on the surface. I never knew that the ancient Yu clan had such guts. But thinking back about it, I don't think they knew that this was for the Crimson League. After all, Shui Fu hadn't at any point disclosed who the items were for. And Yi Qingtang didn't want to accuse the ancient Yu clan at this point in time yet. Chapter 1998, Sowing Discord, 2. A cold scoff left Bai Ji's lips as she sneered at them. This is a mistake that involves the Temple of Shadows as well. Contact the ancient Yu clan and ask them to return the Netherworld ring immediately. Bai Ji felt that the ancient Yu clan would never have dared to touch it if they had known that it belonged to the Crimson League. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, I'll go with you to the ancient Yu clan to get the Netherworld ring. Unable to obtain the Netherworld ring and unable to vent her anger anywhere, Bai Ji scoffed coldly and flew off. Outside the Temple of Shadows, the 8 tribe leaders were all looking gloomy. They had never expected to run into trouble delivering the Netherworld ring. Shui Fu was still kneeling on the ground, guilt gnawing at his insides to the point he felt as though it was almost swallowing him whole. This is all my fault. I never expected the ancient Yu clan to act, or I would have asked Ming Di to go. Yi Qingtang sighed. Good job on stealing it. It's my fault for being too weak. I wasn't able to protect the Netherworld ring and caused the Holy Lord such trouble. Let me personally head over to the ancient Yu clan to demand it back, Shui Fu said. I'll leave this to you then, said Yi Qingtang. Yes. Having found a way to make amends for his failure, Shui Fu immediately retreated. Without even stopping for a break, he quickly headed to the ancient Yu clan to inform them that the Netherworld ring belonged to the Crimson League to force them to hand it over. Yi Qingtang returned to her room. On her bed was Ling Yan, who seemed to be tired from waiting for news. She was greeted with the sight of a sleeping beauty as she entered her room. Elated and not wanting to think too much, she walked forward and patted him awake. It's done. Ling Yan got up sleepily and looked at the smiling Yi Qingtang. Congratulations. His voice was husky and thick with sleep and made her heart itch. Your idea was still the best. Everything fell into place beautifully without much effort with the drawing spirit stone, she said. This is just the beginning. With the ancient Yu clan's current power, they probably won't provoke the Crimson League. It's likely that they will return the Netherworld Ring, and when they do, the Crimson League will realize that the ring is fake. Ling Yan said with a huge smile. You're sure that the Crimson League can tell that the ring is fake? Yi Qingtang asked. There are probably people in the ancient Yu clan who will be able to tell that the Netherworld Ring is a fake, but with the rush and the other real Dharma treasures that Lady Yi placed in there, they probably won't look too closely. They won't be able to tell that the Netherworld Ring I made is fake without using it. Ling Yan paused for a while before he continued. As for using it, only people with a certain power and with demon blood in their veins can use it. There are very few of such people in the ancient Yu clan, and they must have been rushing to hand it over to their clan leader. It will be too late once he has found someone to use it. At that time, the Crimson League would have found their way to them and they would have no choice but to hand it over. The Crimson League will realize soon after they get the ring, and the ancient Yu clan won't be able to explain themselves afterwards, Ling Yan said happily. They could always say that they had taken the Crimson League's item by accident. But they would get into trouble after trying to use a fake ring to trick the Crimson League. Chapter 1999, Sowing Discord, 3. I can't wait for the ancient Yu clan to finish themselves off. Even if the Crimson League doesn't want to make a move, they won't be able to forgive the ancient Yu clan for stealing what's theirs and fooling them. Just the thought alone made Qingtang feel a sense of joy bursting out from inside her. She could vaguely understand the satisfaction that Ling Yan got from playing everyone around him like chess pieces now. You've worked hard. She looked at him. Even she felt tired from looking at the complicated process of creating the fake Netherworld Ring. A smile crossed his lips as he said, Anything for you, Miss Yi. Yi Qingtang was speechless. Why was he talking like this? Miss Yi, I'm feeling a little tired. Could you let me rest a little while? He suddenly asked. She nodded and went to open the door for him to go back to his room, only to see him lie back on her bed and fall asleep. Yi Qingtang. What she meant was for him to go back to his room to take a rest. But she couldn't bear to wake him after seeing him sleep so deeply, so she went to sleep on the soft couch hugging the little white tiger. The news of the male pet Ling Yan spending a night in the Holy Lord's room quickly spread across the Temple of Shadows. Meanwhile, within the ancient Yu clan, Elder Mo was elated to have gotten so many Dharma treasures and was sending the Netherworld Ring to the clan leader as quickly as was humanly possible. Just as he was about to leave, Xuefu arrived in a hurry at the valley the ancient Yu clan was located. Noticing Xuefu, the guard quickly informed the warden. As soon as the warden heard the news, he brought people outside the valley to greet Xuefu, who had recently been beaten by them. The warden's anger was about to explode. Aren't you the guardian from the Temple of Shadows, Xuefu? What are you doing in the ancient Yu clan's territory? Did you come seeking death again? The warden spat out savagely. Xuefu looked coldly at the warden. I'm here today to tell you one thing. HM? And what is that? The warden cocked his ear to listen. You stole the Dharma treasures I was delivering the other day. That's right, we took them. An arrogant sneer was on the warden's face. Those belong to the Crimson League. My master was instructing me to deliver them that day, Xuefu said. The warden seemed to not be listening clearly and said, I don't care who you're delivering it to. It belongs to the ancient Yu clan now. He was still feeling arrogant when he realized that something was amiss. Who did you say these belong to? The warden's expression changed quickly as he asked. The Crimson League, Xuefu said coldly. The warden's face turned ashen. You're referring to the Crimson League from the second domain? That Crimson League? That's right. Xuefu nodded and continued without waiting for the warden to speak. Let's not talk about the animosity between the Temple of Shadows and the Crimson League. The Netherworld Ring and other Dharma treasures were meant for the Crimson League. In 3 days, I will be returning with people from the Crimson League to retrieve them. What you decide on is up to you. With that, Xuefu turned and left. He believed that the ancient Yu clan wasn't dumb enough to offend the powers of the second domain. The warden's face was as dark as the underside of a burnt pot when Xue Fu left. The Netherworld ring belonged to the Crimson League? How could this be? Chapter 2000, Good Show 1. The warden was dumbfounded. While he wasn't certain if Xue Fu was speaking the truth or not, he didn't dare to just ignore it since it concerned the second domain's influence. He instantly broke the news to Elder Mo, who had just gifted the Netherworld ring to the clan leader. Did Xue Fu really say that the Netherworld ring is supposed to be given to the Crimson League? Elder Mo's expression darkened. He wasn't afraid of a mere Temple of Shadows, he would eventually have to get rid of them. But if it concerned the Crimson League… Yes, Xue Fu really said that, the warden uttered. Elder Mo's brows furrowed and was immersed in deep thought. The Crimson League was part of the second domain and was a force to be reckoned with. Those from the central mainland may not know the ancient Yu clan's true aim, but Elder Mo knew it deeply. The ancient Yu clan's aim wasn't the central mainland, nor the first domain, but the second domain. They made use of Little Yu Yun's spiritual abode to increase their cultivation state to the point that they could already enter the second domain. The reason they remained in the central mainland was so that they could quickly collect the fragments of the spirit of chaos to increase the ancient Yu clan's cultivation state again. However, at this point in time, the ancient Yu clan certainly didn't want to come face to face with the second domain's powers. It was even more so when faced with the powerful Crimson League. Xue Fu said that he would come with the Crimson League's people in 3 days' time? Elder Mo asked. Yes. The warden nodded. We shall see, Elder Mo murmured with a cautious attitude. It would be a sticky mess if they really did snatch something from the Crimson League. After making sure everything was taken care of, Elder Mo quickly broke the news to the clan leader. The clan leader of the ancient Yu clan almost spat out blood knowing that the Netherworld ring would cause such trouble for them right after it came under their possession. They'll leave the Netherworld ring with you for the time being. If anyone from the Crimson League comes, just pass it to them and let them know it's just a misunderstanding. If no one comes, it means that the Temple of Shadows fooled us again. We don't need to show mercy anymore. The clan leader gave the orders. It wasn't time for them to provoke the powers from the second domain. Moreover, it would mean war for the ancient Yu clan if they were to get into a fight with the Crimson League now. The ancient Yu clan could do almost everything they wanted in the central mainland, but when it came to the second domain, as the ancient Yu clan was pulled into doubt about the situation, Xue Fu had already returned to the Temple of Shadows and was seeking forgiveness from Yi Qingtang. Having no choice, Yi Qingtang gave a small punishment and brushed it off. Xue Fu was filled with gratitude and felt even more guilty towards her. He went to the prison and requested for Lady Ghost to administer punishment on him. Yi Qingtang was speechless when she learned about it. The undead clan seemed to be strange like that. Yi Qingtang was in no hurry at all. Everything was laid out and all that was left was for the good show to begin. 3 days passed by just like that. Bai Ji came to the Temple of Shadows as scheduled. Yi Qingtang had been waiting for her arrival long ago. Even though Yi Qingtang wore a mask, when she saw Bai Ji, she remained composed. However, she was feeling excited inside, waiting for a good show. Bai Ji stepped into the temple with an imposing aura. She looked around before she asked, "Where's the ancient Yu clan?" Bai Ji very obviously thought that the ancient Yu clan should hand the ring over to them after snatching what belonged to the Crimson League. Lady Bai Ji, I sent someone to inform the ancient Yu clan about it 3 days ago. However, the ancient Yu clan didn't respond. I might have to trouble you to follow me over to the ancient Yu clan's place to obtain the Netherworld ring, Xue Fu said. Chapter 2001, Good Show 2. What a joke, you're telling me to go there personally? There was no doubt that Bai Ji was livid. Xue Fu said, the ancient Yu clan might not believe that the Netherworld ring really belongs to the Crimson League, so I need Lady Bai Ji to go with me. Bai Ji scoffed coldly with an impatient look on her face. Despite Bai Ji's reaction, Yi Qingtang wasn't worried at all and merely said, you don't have to go if you don't want the Netherworld ring back. Bai Ji narrowed her eyes at Yi Qingtang. The League Chief had requested for the Netherworld ring specifically and they had to return with it. There was no room for failure. Lead the way, she said coldly. Xue Fu sighed in relief after hearing this and started heading towards the ancient Yu clan with Bai Ji. Ming Wang looked at Bai Ji, who was leaving the main hall, and turned back to look at Yi Qingtang. Holy Lord, you're not going? She nodded simply. Aren't we just getting something back? We don't need that many people for that. With that, she got up slowly and walked back into the temple. But her expression quickly changed as she went back into the palace. She headed straight for Ling Yan's room, scooped him up and flew towards the ancient Yu clan as quickly as she could. The chess pieces were all in place. How could she possibly miss this good show? Miss Yi? Ling Yan was still drowsy and he was lifted into the air by Yi Qingtang. I'm bringing you to the ancient Yu clan to see something good, she said with a smile. She couldn't wait to see Bai Ji's expression after obtaining the netherworld ring. As he looked at her gleeful face, Ling Yan dissolved into laughter. She felt a sudden tightness around her waist and turned to see Ling Yan hugging her waist tightly. She was speechless. An innocent look stared back at her. I'm weak, so I'll be gravely injured if I fall, he said honestly with no shame at all. The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips twitched slightly. He was weak but not to the extent that he would die if he fell from such a height. I'm also afraid of heights, he said with an unchanging expression. Yi Qingtang was speechless. Could he be any more shameless? But she couldn't drop him, so she just quickened her speed and flew towards the ancient Yu clan. She didn't ask for more people to follow them so that the Crimson League wouldn't sense anything amiss. The more natural they acted, the more they could pass it off as an accident. Furthermore, she was extremely intelligent and had never accused the ancient Yu clan directly. She had maintained that it could be a misunderstanding all this while. After all, when the time came, there would be no need for it since the Crimson League would accuse them themselves and destroy them. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qingtang and Ling Yan were at the valley the ancient Yu clan was based in, hidden in the forest behind. Xue Fu and Bai Ji had already arrived. The two wardens who had stolen from them previously and Yu Qiong were already standing outside the valley, and they stared in shock at Xue Fu and the alien race girl in front of them. They had really come? Bai Ji landed slowly and her gaze silently swept over the ancient Yu clan people. She gestured for Xue Fu to settle everything. It was already rare that she was showing up to deal with matters regarding the first domain herself. There would be nothing more humiliating than to have her speak with these lowlifes. Xue Fu seemed to understand her meaning and stepped forward. This is Lady Bai Ji from the Crimson League. Please return the netherworld ring that you stole from us previously. The resentment between the ancient Yu clan and the Temple of Shadows had nothing to do with the Crimson League. Chapter 2002, Good Show, 3, Yi Qingtang gave Xue Fu a silent thumbs up from where she was hidden. Well done. The more Bai Ji thought that the Temple of Shadows had nothing to do with this, the more sinister the ancient Yu clan would seem. The two wardens from the ancient Yu clan looked extremely serious as they looked at Xue Fu and Bai Ji. You say that she's from the Crimson League, but what proof do you have? One of the wardens snapped. The Temple of Shadows was made up of the forces of the undead clan after all. Who knew how many alien races there were after all? Did they simply bring one of them here to pass off as a member of a Crimson League, thinking that they would be tricked so easily? Xue Fu frowned and was about to speak when Bai Ji finally lost her patience. Without waiting for the warden to say anything else, she touched the ground lightly with her feet. In an instant, a vine burst forth from beneath her feet and spread out from her like snakes. The two wardens were covered in vines before they could react. The vines quickly swallowed the guards beside them as well. Yu Qiong was pulled into the vines as well, which had small thorns on them and quickly pierced the skin of the people within them. But what surprised him even more that the thorns were slowly sucking on their blood. Within mere moments, the vines turned red after drawing their blood. The wardens quickly turned white. How terrifying was her power! Just a light touch of her foot was enough to cover the earth with so many vines. I don't have the time to speak with you insects. Hand the netherworld ring over, Bai Ji said with a frown. The wardens were already screeching in agony as the thorns pierced them, draining them of their life by the second. Stop! A wizened old voice spoke out. Elder Mo suddenly appeared outside the valley with a few young men who suddenly charged at Bai Ji as they saw the ancient Yu clan people under attack. You're in the way, Bai Ji said without moving an inch from where she was. The vines under her feet seemed to come to live and grab the people flying to the ground. In an instant, Elder Mo's face darkened. These young men had all been reformed by the spiritual abode, and any one of them could destroy one clan by themselves. Yet all their might today wouldn't even let them get within 10 meters of this alien race girl. This was not the kind of power that anyone in the central mainland could possess. Everyone stop. Elder Mo quickly understood the situation. He quickly stopped his attack and called the youths back. May I know which sect you are from? Elder Mo asked Bai Ji. The ancient Yu clan has taken something that belongs to the Crimson League. You are asking me who I am? Bai Ji said coldly. Elder Mo's heart was beating hard against his chest. He had been doubting the Temple of Shadow's claims about the Crimson League. But now that he had personally witnessed the might of Bai Ji, he could confirm this was true. And the thought made his head want to explode. How could the ancient Yu clan afford to get on the Crimson League's bad side? Especially at this time. Elder Mo quickly said with a smile, I can see that you are from the Crimson League. Please forgive us for our previous disrespect. Chapter 2003, Good Show, 4. Cut the crap. Hand over the Netherworld ring, Bai Ji said. Elder Mo could only sigh. This entire situation is a misunderstanding. We didn't know that the Netherworld ring belonged to the Crimson League. Since it's a misunderstanding, we certainly have to return the Netherworld ring to its owner. With that, Elder Mo took out the Netherworld ring and handed it to Bai Ji. They would suffer grave losses if they were to provoke the Crimson League just because of the Netherworld ring. Bai Ji revealed a look of satisfaction when the ring was handed over to her. You are very sensible. Bai Ji didn't bother wasting any more time with Elder Mo once she got the ring from him. She turned around to leave the place. After all, she only wanted the Netherworld ring. Xue Fu also left, leaving the dumbfounded Yi Qingtang behind. Yi Qingtang was waiting to watch a good show, but nothing actually happened. Bai Ji left without even checking it? Yi Qingtang looked in Bai Ji's direction. She had already flown far away. Wasn't she supposed to check it and get into a fight with them? She had already mentally prepared herself for that. When Ling Yan saw the lifeless expression on Yi Qingtang's face, he couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Miss Yi. What's the matter? Only the person in the black robes can authenticate the Netherworld ring, Ling Yan reminded. Yi Qingtang was speechless. The person in the black robes has a strong death aura. I presume he is of demon blood. Miss Yi, don't worry. I'm sure the Crimson League is capable of authenticating it. Ling Yan tried to comfort Yi Qingtang when he noticed her disappointment. Yi Qingtang didn't move. I'll be waiting. Ling Yan couldn't help but laugh. Bai Ji flew back to the Frost Abyss in the shortest time possible. Inside the Fox Demon's cave, the person in black robes and the porcelain man were discussing something with the Fox Demon. When they noticed Bai Ji's arrival, they stopped talking about it. How was it? The person in black robes asked. How could it possibly go wrong? The ancient Yu clan didn't dare hesitate at all. They returned the Netherworld ring just like that. Bai Ji put the box containing the Netherworld ring down on the table and casually sat down. How dare Mo Yao say that the ancient Yu clan is eyeing the Crimson League? That's a complete joke. You would have seen how intimidated the ancient Yu clan was if you were there. When they heard of the Crimson League, they probably wet their pants. How dare these cowards even try to compete with the Crimson League? Bai Ji scoffed. The ancient Yu clan was fearful? The porcelain man's face didn't move even a bit when he asked. Of course. It seems like Mo Yao might not have spoken the truth. Thankfully, we have the Netherworld ring in our hands now. What about the Temple of Shadows? The porcelain man asked the person in black robes. The person in black robes didn't answer. He opened the box containing the Netherworld ring and took the ring out, placing it around his finger. When the person in black robes stretched his hand out, his hand didn't look like a hand at all. It was just a ball of black smoke, forming the shape of a hand. There was no skin, no bones. When the person in black robes put the ring on his finger, huge gusts of black smoke rushed out from his black robe. The smoke rushed towards the Netherworld ring. Right when the black smoke rushed towards the Netherworld ring, the Netherworld ring made a crisp sound. The ring shattered in the next moment. Chapter 2004, Good Show, 5. What's going on? Bai Ji was confused when she saw the Netherworld ring shatter into pieces. The fox demon and the others' expressions also changed. The person in black robes didn't say anything. He merely spread his fingers and absorbed the shattered pieces into his palm. Then he suddenly smashed the shattered pieces into the ice table. Bai Ji, you've been fooled. A dark voice came from the black robe. What? Bai Ji was stunned. This is not the Netherworld ring. It's just a fake. The person in black robe's voice was filled with displeasure. Hearing the words, Bai Ji collected herself and she looked at the shattered pieces that were smashed into the ice table. Though it just seemed like black, the corners of the broken pieces were obviously dark gray. Fake? How could that be? I brought it back personally. It was with me the entire time, Bai Ji said. The person in black robes just scoffed. Nothing went wrong during the process of you bringing it back. This thing was a fake from the beginning. Bai Ji's face blanched. How dare the ancient Yu clan use a fake to fool me? No one would have thought that the Netherworld ring would be a fake. So, the Holy Lord of Shadows was speaking the truth? The fox demon's brows furrowed. They didn't think that the ancient Yu clan would have the guts to act against the Crimson League, but things turned out to be different from what they thought. The ancient Yu clan is too brazen. How dare they attempt to fool the Crimson League? Bai Ji gnashed her teeth angrily. She wanted to ruin the ancient Yu clan when she learned that she had been fooled by the humans of the First Domain. Could this be the Holy Lord of Shadows' plan? Could the Netherworld ring have been a fake in the first place? The fox demon asked. The person in black robes shook his head. If it wasn't for the ancient Yu clan's sudden interception, the Netherworld ring would have landed in our hands. The Temple of Shadows would be courting their own death if they were to hand the fake ring to the Crimson League. The person in black robe's guess wasn't wrong, but he hadn't figured out Yi Qingtang was behind the ancient Yu clan's interception. So, Mo Yao's words are reliable? The ancient Yu clan is this ambitious and the Crimson League is nothing to them now. They started by snatching something belonging to us and now they fooled us with a fake. The fox demon's expression darkened. The person in black robes didn't say anything. He got up all of a sudden and flew out of the cave. Bai Ji and the other alien race followed behind. Outside the ancient Yu clan's valley, Yi Qingtang and Ling Yan remained in the forest for quite some time. She lifted her eyes to look at the skies now and then, waiting for the arrival of the 3 people from the Crimson League. She was determined to see it with her own eyes. They didn't make Yi Qingtang wait that long. In just a while, the mutant wind snake appeared in the skies. Yi Qingtang's eyes lit up. They're here. There were a few guards from the ancient Yu clan guarding at the entrance of the valley. The 2 wardens hadn't left yet, but Yu Qiong was already nowhere to be seen. The 2 wardens were still troubling over the mess they've gotten themselves into. When they heard some sounds, they immediately turned back and saw the huge mutant wind snake in the sky. It was charging towards the valley. What is that? Chapter 2005, Good Show, 6, Is it the Crimson League? One warden immediately recognized Bai Ji, who rode on the back of the mutant wind snake. The 2 wardens looked at each other and instantly stepped forward. How can we be of any help to the ambassadors of the Crimson League? Right after they said that, Bai Ji jumped off the back of the mutant wind snake and appeared right in front of them. She grabbed their necks forcibly and growled with flashing eyes. How dare you fool me? Bai Ji had a dangerous look in her eyes. She felt humiliated every single time she recalled that these idiots from the First Domain had fooled her. Fool you? Why do you say that? How did we fool you? One warden quickly responded. He just couldn't figure out how they even offended the Crimson League. Hadn't they already returned the Netherworld ring? Why would the Crimson League even come back for them? Let alone the fact that she was in such rage. Before the warden could even finish his words, Bai Ji snapped his neck. A grown man's neck was as fragile as a chopstick in front of Bai Ji. The bones in his neck cracked and his head rolled onto the ground. The morbid left the other warden so frightened he could barely stand. He simply couldn't figure out what had gone wrong. Why did she just lash out like that? Please spare my life. All the color drained from his face. The ancient Yu clan was now powerful enough to dominate the central mainland, but when faced with Bai Ji, who came from the second domain's central mainland, he wasn't capable of handling her. The ancient Yu clan's guards were shocked. They were at a loss and didn't know what to do, but they held the swords with a firmer grip, clenched fingers drenched in sweat. They had seen Bai Ji's powers with their own eyes. Even the warden wasn't a match for her. How would they stand a chance? Bai Ji. They heard a voice from behind the mutant wind snake. The dangerous look in Bai Ji's eyes only subsided after she heard the voice. The person in black robes rode on black wind and arrived. "Who handed the netherworld ring to you?" the person in black robes asked. In response, Bai Ji threw a pointed glare at the warden. It was Elder. "Get that old scoundrel to come out now," Bai Ji sneered. Elder Mo is not here right now. He left right after you earlier on. May I know, what made you this angry? Is there any misunderstanding? The warden inquired. He was afraid that he would end up the same way as the other warden. So he left. That old scoundrel planned everything. Bai Ji grit her teeth as she figured everything out. Elder Mo escaped after making up excuses and giving her a fake netherworld ring. How dare the ancient Yu clan fool the Crimson League with a fake netherworld ring? I'm certain that I can find the netherworld ring after I extinguish the ancient Yu clan. A murderous look flashed past Bai Ji's eyes. Before the warden could even speak, she snapped his neck. The next moment, Bai Ji was just like a gust of wind and she flew into the ancient Yu clan's valley. The alien races didn't do anything, they just allowed Bai Ji to do anything. Outside the valley, the corners of Yi Qingtang's lips lifted into a smile. It seemed like the Crimson League had fallen into her trap. Chapter 2006, Working Together, 1. All good. Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan, speaking at a low volume that only the both of them could hear. A short nod from Ling Yan signaled for Yi Qingtang to leave first. It wasn't likely for this incident to just end so easily. Yi Qingtang was afraid that they would be exposed and she quickly flew away with Ling Yan. This valley is only one of the ancient Yu clan's locations. I'm sure the Crimson League did this to assert dominance, Ling Yan said. Well, there's no way the ancient Yu clan can find the netherworld ring and hand it over. They will not be able to make peace. Yi Qingtang was elated. After all, she had achieved her aims of dragging the Crimson League down. Some time after Yi Qingtang returned to the Temple of Shadows, she used another voice transmission stone to contract Yu Qiong. Holy Lord! Yu Qiong's voice came from the voice transmission stone. How is it? Yi Qingtang asked. You're indeed formidable, Holy Lord. The Crimson League is at odds with the ancient Yu clan now. Yu Qiong sounded respectful. He was convinced that his life was in Yi Qingtang's hands and didn't dare try anything. Oh, why is that? Yi Qingtang asked. Yu Qiong explained everything that happened in the valley after Yi Qingtang left. It was just as Yi Qingtang and Ling Yan had expected. Bai Ji had massacred the entire ancient Yu clan's valley. The ancient Yu clan had intended to train youths in the valley, but they eventually moved most of the equipment and youths somewhere else because of the Jiang family's incident. Fewer than 20 powerful youths guarding the place. They weren't of the highest grade and naturally was no match for Bai Ji. It only took less than 12 hours for the ancient Yu clan's valley to be wiped out. Bai Ji left a letter behind in the ancient Yu clan's valley after killing everyone. She ordered the ancient Yu clan to return the netherworld ring. If not, they would be undermining the Crimson League's authority and the Crimson League would declare war on the ancient Yu clan. Yi Qingtang was delighted when she learned of the news, but she remained calm on the outside. On the other hand, Yu Qiong figured out that Yi Qingtang had planned everything when he noticed that she was exceptionally calm. The Holy Lord of Shadows was terrifying. The Crimson League and ancient Yu clan would never have imagined that their conflict was all planned by the Temple of Shadows. Got it? You did a good job. You can have your freedom once you complete everything, Yi Qingtang said. Yu Qiong didn't dare say a word. Yi Qingtang was in a good mood after hanging up. The ancient Yu clan had fallen straight into her trap. They thought that they had snatched up something good, but it was some trouble for them instead. Now, the Crimson League was convinced that the ancient Yu clan has something up their sleeves and they are determined to assert dominance. It could be resolved if the ancient Yu clan can find the netherworld ring and hand it over to the Crimson League, but they couldn't possibly do that. There was no authentic netherworld ring. The netherworld ring that the ancient Yu clan had snatched over was a fake. After all, Yi Qingtang had intentionally let them snatch it. The ancient Yu clan would never be able to clear their name now. 3 days later, the 3 alien races of the Crimson League appeared outside the Temple of Shadows. They weren't as arrogant as before. When they stood outside the Temple of Shadows, their behavior was surprisingly polite. Chapter 2007, Working Together, 2. May I know the reason for your visit? You have already gotten the Netherworld ring back, correct? Yi Qingtang remained composed while looking at them, acting like she was puzzled. She wasn't supposed to know anything. The corners of Bai Ji's lips twitched. She didn't say a word and just looked at the person in black robes. The person in black robes spoke. You disappeared 10,000 years ago without giving any reason, and the Crimson League removed the Temple of Shadows from the League. 10,000 years later, the Temple of Shadows is no longer under the Crimson League. However, taking into consideration your sincerity towards the Crimson League, the League Chief is willing to accept the Temple of Shadows again. It took only 3 days for the Crimson League to completely fall out with the Ancient Yu clan. The Ancient Yu clan hadn't returned the Netherworld ring, and the League Chief of the Crimson League was very displeased. It was inevitable, be it for the Netherworld ring, or to uphold the Crimson League's dignity. The Crimson League's main powers were concentrated in the second domain. It wasn't appropriate to make such a big move just to act against a first domain power. This was the reason why the Crimson League's chief ordered the person in black robes to collaborate with the Temple of Shadows. The Temple of Shadows had a long presence in the central mainland and was clear about the Ancient Yu clan's distribution channels. If they worked together, the Crimson League would need to spend fewer resources. When Yi Qingtang heard the person in black robes' words, she couldn't help but laugh inside. They put it in such a pleasant way that others would have thought that the Crimson League was magnanimous to accept the Temple of Shadows again. They really thought that she didn't know that it was because of the Netherworld ring? Nevertheless, Yi Qingtang wouldn't just expose them like that. Re-accept us into the Crimson League? The person in black robes nodded. On the other hand, Bai Ji's expression was awful, but she didn't say a word. I appreciate the League Chief's good intentions. However, the central mainland is a mess right now. Furthermore, the Ancient Yu clan is very ambitious. We may not even be able to protect ourselves during such times. If we return to the Crimson League, I'm afraid that we will implicate the central mainland. I don't think this will be good. Yi Qingtang acted as if she wanted to be responsible for herself. If you return to the Crimson League, the Temple of Shadows will not fight the Ancient Yu clan alone. The Crimson League will not leave you defenseless, the person in black robes added. The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips kicked up. She had been waiting for them to say that. If that's the case, I will accept the League Chief's good intentions, Yi Qingtang answered. The person in black robes nodded. 10,000 years after its extrication, the Temple of Shadows returned to the Crimson League. The 8 tribe leaders and other important members of the Temple of Shadows smiled when they heard that. No matter what, it was good news for the Temple of Shadows to return to the Crimson League. I reported to the Crimson League about the Ancient Yu clan's intentions. May I know how the investigation is going? Yi Qingtang suddenly asked. Bai Ji's expression turned even more awful. The person in black robes kept quiet for a moment. He didn't try to hide anything. We've investigated it. You were correct, and that's why the League Chief has confirmed your allegiance to the Crimson League. Yi Qingtang laughed. I surely wouldn't just make things up. I wasn't in the position to reveal too much previously, but since I'm back in the Crimson League, I guess I shouldn't hold back anymore. To be honest, I could already sense that the Ancient Yu clan was coming at the Crimson League when they snatched the Netherworld ring. Without any hesitation, Yi Qingtang wasted no time in accusing the Ancient Yu clan. Why do you say that? The person in black robes asked. Chapter 2008, Working Together, 3. The Frost Abyss is where those of alien races reside. If I was able to find out that the ambassadors from the Crimson League were there, with their power and influence, the Ancient Yu clan would definitely know about it too, Yi Qingtang said. Even though we didn't see eye to eye in the past, they rarely attacked us, and the theft of the Netherworld ring was the first time they made a move against us. She pretended to be deep in thought. From those words alone, she was implying that the Ancient Yu clan's target was not the Temple of Shadows and that they had been targeting the Crimson League in the first place. Swayed by the fact that the Netherworld ring was fake as well, the three ambassadors from the Crimson League all felt that her story was indeed believable. Their hatred for the ancient Yu clan inexplicably increased. No wonder they brought out a fake Netherworld ring to fool with me. They were against us from the start, Bai Ji said with a cold scoff. The Netherworld ring was a fake? Yi Qingtang pretended to be astonished by this news. That's right, Bai Ji said. I thought they would understand the situation they were in, but who knew that they would try to trick me again and again? I will not stand for this. Yi Qingtang was bubbling with joy underneath, but her face remained calm. I never imagined that the ancient Yu clan would be so arrogant. I have already reported this to the League chief. The Crimson League will be sending troops over in a few days, and at that time the ancient Yu clan will have no choice but to hand the Netherworld ring over, Bai Ji said through gritted teeth. She had never been made such a fool before. While Yi Qingtang was glad to hear this, she felt that even though the Crimson League wanted to punish the ancient Yu clan, it wasn't to the point of desperation yet. She had to fan the flames even more. After all, the Crimson League was the key to dealing with the ancient Yu clan. This shouldn't be hard since the League chief is overseeing it. Why don't the three of you stay in the Temple of Shadows for now? I'll inform you immediately if there is any movement on the ancient Yu clan's side, she suggested with false sincerity. The man in black robes nodded without saying anything. Bai Ji was unhappy with this arrangement but could only nod silently. As for the last person, he hadn't said anything from start to finish, such that people had begun to forget that he was even there. He was just like a porcelain statue. As soon as she instructed Xue Fu to get the three ambassadors settled, she quickly went to find Ling Yan to come up with ideas to provoke the Crimson League. He whispered a few things in her ear. She understood immediately and started working behind the scenes. Meanwhile, on the side of the ancient Yu clan, things were a mess. Apart from the ancient clans that had gone to seek shelter in the Temple of Shadows, the ancient Yu clan had wiped out all the other clans and collected their spirit of chaos fragments. All that was left now was to attack the Temple of Shadows and obtain their fragments. They had not expected the Crimson League to intervene just as their plan was about to succeed. Several of the ancient Yu clan's strongholds had been destroyed by the three alien race ambassadors in a matter of days. This was causing a massive headache to the ancient Yu clan. What's happening? Didn't we already return the Netherworld ring to them? The faces of many elders in the main hall were tense as they looked at Elder Mo, who was in charge of all this. His expression was extremely dark as well. He had personally handed the Netherworld ring over, yet the Crimson League had told him that it was fake. The last thing they wanted right was a fight with the Crimson League, especially at this point. Chapter 2009, Relentless 1. The clan leader has already given his orders that we are not to get into a conflict with the Crimson League at this time. Elder Mo, you must deal with this and make sure that we do not show any hostility to them. We have to get on their good side no matter what, one of the clan elders said. Elder Mo knew how important this was and had no choice but to accept it. His expression was ugly as he left the main hall. But he had no choice but to deal with the situation personally since the clan leader had given his orders. Find out where the Crimson League ambassadors are at once. The information he sought got back to him almost immediately but only served to darken his expression further. The three alien race ambassadors had now already moved from the Frost Abyss to the Temple of Shadows. Elder Mo, I am to blame for a huge part of the issue with the Netherworld ring. Please let me deal with it. Yu Qiong, who had been following Elder Mo all this while, saw his dark expression and quickly volunteered himself. Go to the Temple of Shadows and beg the Crimson League for peace? Elder Mo would sooner die than do that. Elder Mo was still unhappy with Yu Qiong because of the matter with the Netherworld ring. The only reason he was still keeping him by his side was so that he could use him as a shield when the clan leaders started questioning them. So his heart leaped with joy as he heard Yu Qiong speak up. Patting Yu Qiong's shoulder, he said, Yu Qiong, it's rare for you to be so enthusiastic. I'll appoint you to be a warden from today onwards. Take some Dharma treasures tomorrow and head over to the Temple of Shadows to make amends with the Crimson League. Yu Qiong nodded with an expression of unwavering loyalty. But as Elder Mo left, a slyness flashed across his face. Early the next morning, Warden Yu Qiong brought a troop of ancient Yu clan people on horses and headed towards the Temple of Shadows. The ancient clan people in the Temple of Shadows were all taken aback as they saw the approaching ancient Yu clan. They had all thought that the ancient Yu clan would be declaring a war on the Temple of Shadows, but it didn't look like it. Not at all. In fact, they had come with carts laden with gifts. What was going on? Confusion was mirrored across all of their faces. The ancient Yu clan stopped outside the entrance of the Temple of Shadows and handed a letter over. As Yi Qingtang knew that they were there for the Crimson League, she merely passed the letter on to the three ambassadors. A smile flashed past her face as she spotted Elder Mo among the ancient Yu clan people after letting them in. The three alien race ambassadors in black robes stared at Yu Qiong as he entered the main hall. There were several guards following behind him. They were all confused as they knew nothing about the Crimson League and only knew that they had to follow Yu Qiong's instructions. The ancient Yu clan didn't have anything to put out the fire that they had right now, hence had kept the situation with the Crimson League only within the high ranks. As Yu Qiong stood in the main hall, his gaze swept across the place. His eyes flashed briefly as he saw Yi Qingtang above him before turning to glance at Bai Ji. "You're here to see the three ambassadors?" she asked. He nodded and sighed under his breath. Just as Bai Ji thought that the ancient Yu clan was finally fearing them and was here to beg for mercy, he raised his chin and said haughtily, "I came today on the behalf of the ancient Yu clan leader to greet the three ambassadors from the Crimson League." Chapter 2010, Relentless 2. Bai Ji was extremely displeased by Yu Qiong's attitude. "HM? The ancient Yu clan is finally scared of us?" she said. "Scared?" He laughed and continued, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. What do we have to fear? I'm only here today to pass on a message. You don't want to have the ancient Yu clan as your enemy." "What?" Bai Ji's face darkened as she heard this. Ignoring this, Yu Qiong continued, "With our current power, the Crimson League is nothing to us. The only reason we didn't fight with you the other time was to save you some face. I'm here today to tell you that if you lift a hand to interfere with the matters of the Central Mainland, we will retaliate with an attack on the second domain and you will be our first target." His words were like a crack of thunder, shaking the entire Temple of Shadows. Who would have expected that even though they had come bearing presents looking like they were ready to beg for mercy, that they would say such shocking things? Did they want to attack the Crimson League? How ludicrous! Outrageous! Yi Qingtang exclaimed in a low voice. Yet she silently gave his declaration a thumbs up in her mind. "Well done. Outrageous? So what if we say things like this?" He continued to speak in an arrogant tone as he raised his hands nonchalantly and placed them on the beautiful boxes behind him. "The Netherworld ring belongs to us now. But my clan leader is a man of generosity and has brought all these gifts to trade for it. We hope that the Crimson League can understand the situation and leave the Central Mainland with these gifts. The Central Mainland will be the ancient Yu clan's power from now on, so please do not interfere with us." To think that he dared to speak with much arrogance. Yu Qiong's acting was great and he instantly turned the gifts that Elder Mo and sent as an offering into something demeaning. The guards behind him were all of low ranking and merely followed along with him. Elder Mo had sent Yu Qiong as he was unwilling to step into the Temple of Shadows inside and had also planned for him and the guards to be slaughtered by the Crimson League as a sacrifice. He was willing to do anything to ease the anger in his heart. Not knowing the true situation, the soldiers all thought that this was the clan leader's will and started feeling arrogant as well. Bai Ji and the other ambassador's face all darkened in an instant. The ambassador who had not spoken at all till now like a porcelain doll closed his eyes. Seeing that she had stoked the flames enough, Yi Qingtang suddenly raised her hand. A beam of light shot out and slammed Yu Qiong into the wall. His eyes widened in surprise, but before he could say anything, a spurt of blood burst from his mouth and he died on the spot. The moment Yi Qingtang had made her move, Bai Ji had made hers as well, and vines erupted from the ground, crushing the ancient Yu clan soldiers to smithereens. That damned ancient Yu clan! How dare they show such arrogance? I don't think we can placate the anger of the Crimson League without killing them off. Bai Ji's eyes were red and she was seething in anger. The ambassador in black robes raised his hands and turned the gifts into ashes. Mo Yao, gather information on the power of the ancient Yu clan as soon as possible. They will be finished once our troops get here. A cold voice emanated from within the black robes. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly. The black-robed ambassador left, with Bai Ji behind him. The ancient Yu clan hadn't treated the Crimson League seriously at all and had humiliated them right in front of them. How dare a mere organization from the First Domain offend the Crimson League? Chapter 2011, Relentless. 3. The 8 tribe leaders and Ming Wang all looked confused as the 3 ambassadors left the main hall. Isn't the ancient Yu clan acting too arrogantly? How do they dare challenge the Crimson League so directly? The demon tribe leader was shocked. How ridiculous was this? They're just looking for their own destruction. The goblin tribe leader sneered with a cold laugh. This is great. We were still worrying about how to deal with the ancient Yu clan, but now that they have angered the Crimson League themselves, it's going to save us a lot of trouble. The 8 tribe leaders were taken aback by the ancient Yu clan's arrogance but nevertheless glad at the Crimson League's declaration of war against them. Holy Lord, what will be our next move? I want you to gather all information on the ancient Yu clan at once, Yi Qingtang said. Yes, they acknowledged her order and retreated. Xue Fu ordered the blood in the main hall to be cleared up. As they were all distracted, Yi Qingtang dragged the dead Yu Qiong from the pool of blood. Yu Qiong, who was supposed to already be dead, suddenly came to life as Yi Qingtang brought him to a place where no one was looking. He took huge gulps of air, as though he had really been killed off previously. You did well just now. You know what you need to do after returning to the ancient Yu clan? Yi Qingtang asked him slowly. He had already contacted Yi Qingtang before arriving, and the reason she had pretended to kill him was so that Bai Ji wouldn't harm him in her anger. I will make sure to carry out what the Holy Lord has tasked me with. It's just that. Yu Qiong looked at her in apprehension. I've already gathered some information on the girl that the Holy Lord asked me to investigate. She had asked him to investigate a girl previously, someone that the ancient Yu clan had brought over from the central mainland. Yu Qiong knew that the girl was the reason how the ancient Yu clan had become so powerful so quickly, but he hadn't heard much about her after returning to the ancient Yu clan. Yi Qingtang's brows furrowed slightly and she sighed softly. Where had the ancient Yu clan hidden little Yu Yun? Once the Crimson League and the ancient Yu clan went into war, they wouldn't stop until one of them was destroyed. She would take that opportunity to look for little Yu Yun and rescue little Luo Xue at the same time. But now, there's something else. Yi Qingtang paused and asked Yu Qiong to lean in. An expression of shock crossed his face as she whispered a few words in his ear. You can return now if you understand. I will inform you if there is any further news, she said. All right. Yu Qiong wiped the blood from himself and left via the secret passage in the Temple of Shadows. This was sufficient. She had stoked the flames enough. Covered in blood, Yu Qiong headed back to the ancient Yu clan in a pathetic state. Elder Mo, who had been awaiting good news, froze when he saw Yu Qiong returning covered in blood. What happened? He asked. Yu Qiong's face was pathetic as he knelt to the ground with a thud. I deserve to die. I did as you asked and went to the Crimson League to seek mercy, only for them to retaliate and try to kill us off. I only escaped by feigning death so that I could report to you. He said this all with great sincerity, tears streaming down his face. Elder Mo's face got even darker. The Crimson League isn't willing to make peace? Yu Qiong nodded and said, the Crimson League said that the Temple of Shadows belonged to them in the first place and they wanted to help it become the strongest force in the central mainland. The only reason they sent people over was because the ancient Yu clan has been increasing its scope of influence. Chapter 2012, Relentless. 4. Yu Qiong spoke carefully as he looked at Elder Mo's expression. Those words were what Yi Qingtang had asked him to reveal to Elder Mo. By now, Elder Mo's expression was extremely bleak. He had heard that the Crimson League had relations with the Temple of Shadows but thought that those had broken off when the Holy Lord of Shadows went missing. Which was why they had never included the Crimson League in their calculations. However, did this mean that the Temple of Shadows was returning to the Crimson League? This was extremely possible considering all that had happened so far. Why would the Crimson League send people over from the second domain if not for the fact that the Temple of Shadows had gone to them for help after feeling threatened? The Holy Lord of Shadows is intelligent indeed. No wonder she had dared to retaliate against us that time. So she had already contacted the Crimson League? Elder Mo laughed coldly. They're just using the authenticity of the Netherworld Ring as an excuse to start a fight with us. He took a deep breath and looked at the pathetic Yu Qiong. You can go and take a rest first. I will inform the clan leader. They could sort out any misunderstandings if those were present, but there was nothing to speak about if the Crimson League had been on the side of the Temple of Shadows from the start. A cold smile flashed across Yu Qiong's face as he looked at Elder Mo rush off. In the Temple of Shadows, Yi Qingtang, who had already planned everything out, was about to check up on the ancient clans. But before she could step out of the door, a voice sounded behind her. Mo Yao, wait. Her footsteps halted. The voice was ethereal and she knew who it was even before turning around. She turned around and found the black-robed ambassador behind her. Me? What is it? She asked as she looked at him. He was from the Ghost Clan and was called me. The Ghost Clan was vastly different from the dead souls of ordinary people. They were born without a body and were just formless consciousness. With the continuous cultivation of the Ghost Clan, they were able to control the energy of the dead and create a vague body. They were beings that had never been alive. If the Undead Clan was the clan closest to death, then the Ghost Clan could be said to be born from death itself. Mo Yao, is there anything you haven't told us? Mi's entire body was hidden under the black cloak with only a stream of black smoke coming out from it. What are you talking about? She asked. The spirit of chaos, Mi said. Yi Qingtang was taken aback. He continued, since the Temple of Shadows has rejoined the Crimson League, we have decided to interfere in the matters of the central mainland. But since the Netherworld Ring has already been lost, the League Chief has requested that you collect all the fragments of the Spirit of Chaos. She hadn't expected the Crimson League to want the Spirit of Chaos so quickly. While she wasn't sure what exactly it was, she knew that it had to be powerful since the ancient Yu clan was going through so much trouble to obtain it. And now even the Crimson League was coveting it. I understand the League Chief's intentions. Once everything has been settled on the central mainland, I will hand over all the fragments that I have collected, she said with a smile. Chapter 2013, The Demon Clan Disaster, 1. Yi Qingtang had no intention of holding on to this hot potato. Besides, the Spirit of Chaos was worthless if even one piece was missing. As far as she was aware, no one knew where the shard that the Holy Lord of Shadows had taken with her was. Seemingly satisfied with her answer, Mi faded back into the shadows with a nod. He left so silently that Yi Qingtang wouldn't even have noticed that he was there if he hadn't spoken up. The Ghost Clan was rare even in the second domain, and Yi Qingtang didn't know much about them. All she knew was, not many people dared anger them in the second domain. Just as she had gotten rid of me, the North Star Demon Lord suddenly rushed in from the entrance. Holy Lord, I have a request for you. The huge figure suddenly knelt in front of her as he looked at her seriously. What is it? She asked. Please save my Northland Demon Tribe, the North Star Demon Lord said earnestly. Northland Demon Tribe? She asked as her brows raised slightly. There were many demon tribes in the central mainland and the Northland Demon Tribe was one of them. It was where the North Star Demon Lord originated. Many demon tribes had chosen to follow the ancient Yu clan when they had been expanding their power, but the Northland Demon Tribe had not. Holy Lord, the demon tribes following the ancient Yu clan have already invaded my Northland Demon Tribe where they burnt, robbed, killed and committed all sorts of evil. In a short period of time, they have already killed and hurt many of the demons there. I beg the Holy Lord to intervene and save my demon tribe. He said urgently. What is happening? Yi Qingtang was shocked as the ancient Yu clan's main targets were the various ancient clans. The demon tribes and dynasties rarely participated in fights and most of the invasions were done by the other powers who had joined the ancient Yu clan. But this didn't seem to be the case based on what the Demon Lord was saying. He explained everything to Yi Qingtang. The Northland Demon Tribe was rather far away and the demons there rarely left the place. It was a place where demons were safe and where it was hard to fight. Back when demons had started to follow the ancient Yu clan and began invading other demon territories, they hadn't put much pressure on the Northland demon tribe. But in recent times, the ancient Yu clan had started attacking them. They had attacked in huge numbers, and the Northland demon tribe, which was used to peace, had no time to respond to this sudden attack. Those traitors! Forget it if they want to follow the ancient Yu clan, but how could they harm their own? They've taken many of our young demons and I'm not sure if they're still alive. The Northstar Demon Lord's face was crestfallen. In fact, he had already brought many of his comrades to seek the protection of the Temple of Shadows in the early days when the tribes were starting to join the ancient Yu clan. But the remaining demons had been unwilling to leave and had no choice but to submit to the ancient Yu clan. They had thought that they would be safe if they submitted to the ancient Yu clan and had not expected the demons following them to invade and take away the demons which had yet to grow up. What do they do with the demon cubs? Yi Qingtang couldn't push away the feeling that something was off. I'm not sure, the Northstar Demon Lord said. Chapter 2014, The Demon Clan Disaster, 2. I will consider it. Please do not be too worried and inform me if there are any new changes. There was no way Yi Qingtang wouldn't care about her brother, but she felt that something was strange with the way the ancient Yu clan was suddenly invading. The Crimson League had already turned against the ancient Yu clan. How could they possibly have the spare time and effort to destroy the demon tribes right now? The Northstar Demon Lord nodded and retreated. Yi Qingtang felt that something was terribly off with this situation and contacted Yu Qiong in secret, asking him about the situation. I've heard of this as well, but am not sure why the ancient Yu clan has decided to do this. But I can confirm that the demons were all instructed directly by the ancient Yu clan to do this, he said. Yi Qingtang frowned. So it really was on the ancient Yu clan's orders? Yu Qiong seemed to suddenly remember something and said, Holy Lord, I have some information regarding the demon tribes. Do you need this information? Speak. When I had just returned to the ancient Yu clan, I was in the valley a lot, and it was where they trained the youths at the start. Apart from them, I also saw many demon cubs locked up as well as a few skins. Skins? What skins were they? She asked. They were the skins of several demon cubs. The flesh within it had been hollowed out, leaving behind only the skin. I thought it was strange and tried to keep a lookout but didn't see them doing anything to the demon cubs. However, after 2 days, the demon cubs were suddenly greatly reduced. I'm not sure what happened but realized that many of them vanished after being brought to the ancient Yu clan and many skins would be thrown out the next day. Yu Qiong quickly spilled all that he had secretly observed. Cubs and skins, as well as this sudden invasion? She could feel in her heart that there was some ploy behind this sudden invasion. She immediately asked Lady Ghost to investigate the invasion of the demon tribes after the rise of the ancient Yu clan. Lady Ghost investigated swiftly and quickly handed the information over to Yi Qingtang. The information shocked her. Half a year before the rise of the ancient Yu clan, many cubs were vanishing mysteriously from the various demon habitats. Demon cubs caught and being sold on the black market also started to become in short supply. As soon as a demon cub appeared on the black market, it would quickly be bought by a mysterious figure. More demon cubs had been vanishing with the rise of the ancient Yu clan, but with the chaos that had been going on in the central mainland, everyone's attention had been focused on the ancient clans instead. No one had noticed what was happening on the side of the demons. Yi Qingtang felt that she had grasped something important. The things that the ancient Yu clan were so desperately chasing were all items that could make them stronger. She suddenly thought of the youths that they had trained. Chapter 2015, The Demon Clan Disaster, 3. The youths who had been changed by Little Yu Yun's spiritual abode. She had thought that the cause was Little Yu Yun's spiritual abode all this while, but now that she thought about it, even though everyone in the ancient Yu clan had gotten much more powerful, the ones who had become monstrously strong were mainly the youths. She clearly remembered how their irises would change as they became their most powerful. What did this have to do with all those missing cubs? Are the people from the ancient Yu clan taking part in the attacks on the demon tribes? She asked. As far as I know, they were not participating and didn't care about the demon tribes at all. They just let the tribes under them attack and invade the tribes. But recently there has been a greater sense of urgency in their attacks, and they have gotten the demon tribes following them and even the Eternal Dynasty to join the invasion, Yu Qiong said. Even the Eternal Dynasty was participating? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. She had already gotten the Sacred Martial Academy to repay their debt to her. All that was left was the Eternal Dynasty. I understand. Continue observing the ancient Yu clan and report to me if anything happens. Yes. She ended their connection and a smile pulled at the corners of her lips. This would be easy since the ancient Yu clan had sent people to help with the invasion. After she gathered the 8 tribe leaders and Ming Di, as well as the North Star Demon Lord on the way, the entourage headed towards Northland to kill them. The Northland was covered in snow. But the once vast white landscape was now dotted with stark red blood. Countless bodies were half buried in the white snow. The land was dyed red in the demon's blood. Human soldiers came in troops on horses with the demon tribes on their side, disrupting the peace of the Northland. I can see a group of demons from the Northland demon tribe heading that way. A lizard-like demon pointed at a snow-capped mountain as he narrowed his slit eyes and his forked tongue darted from his lips. Behind the demon was a huge troop of human soldiers. They rode on huge horses with huge carts among them full of cold metal cages. The cages were stuffed full of scared, trembling demon cubs. They were all extremely small and were in the form they were born with as they didn't know how to shapeshift yet. They had just witnessed their parents being killed cruelly in front of them before being dragged from their corpses and thrown into these cold cages. The naive cubs could only wail in fear as they cuddled together, trying to get warm. Shut your traps. Keep wailing and it'll kill all of you. An Eternal Dynasty soldier slammed his heavy sword upon the cages harshly as he glared at them with fierce eyes. The terrified cubs huddled even closer together as they stared at the evil demons in front of them with tears in their eyes. Ignore them. Go after the escaping ones at once, the lizard-like demon spat out. The Eternal Dynasty soldier's lips twitched as he reached into the cage nonchalantly and grabbed one of the demon's feet. He pulled it through the bars of the cage as the demon cut wailed in pain. They're too noisy. Chapter 2016. The powerful bullying the weak. The lizard-like demon licked his lips. Don't push it. We have to bring these cubs back to the ancient Yu clan, otherwise they're going to blame us if any of the cubs die. The soldier let go reluctantly, but his gaze remained fierce. The soldiers and horses rushed towards the snow mountain quickly. In the cave at the bottom of the mountain, close to 10 adult demons were pushing the demon cubs into the cave. Many of them were injured, with blood streaming down their bodies, but they gave no heed to it. They only had one thing on their mind. They had to send these cubs somewhere safe or the Northland demon tribe was going to be wiped out. I'm afraid. A rabbit demon with long ears and a small tail had just learned to shapeshift, but he couldn't have been more than 3 or 4. Blinking its red eyes, it grabbed its mother's sleeve fearfully, ears drooping in worry. The mother rabbit demon hugged her child tightly and comforted it. What it didn't know was where it couldn't see, there was a huge, gaping wound on her back, deep enough that it went down to her bone. Be a good cub and follow your uncles in. I will be right behind you, all right? The mother rabbit demon bore with the immense pain as she gazed longingly at her child. The little rabbit demon nodded timidly as it was handed over to the other adult demons. Please take care of him for me. The mother rabbit demon looked at her comrades and nodded weakly, but determination shone in her eyes. Apart from her, many injured adult demons were handing their children over to their comrades as well, as they stood at the entrance looking at them go deeper into the cave. The Northland had been invaded. They were all injured and would die soon. There were demons among the enemy as well, and they would soon pick up their scent and rush over, which meant that some of them had to stay back to buy the rest of them time. The little rabbit demon hugged his long ears as he followed the other demon cubs into the cave under the protection of the other adult demons. He turned back to take another look at his mother but could no longer see her. Uncle Tiger, when will Mom follow us? He patted the tiger demon beside him. The tiger demon pulled him into his arms and said, Soon. All of a sudden, the strong stench of blood rushed in from behind them, along with the biting cold wind. It was the smell of fresh blood. Countless roars came from behind them and the tiger demon froze. He hugged the little rabbit demon who wanted to look up even tighter in his arms and quickened his pace. Uncle Tiger? Just sleep. You'll see her after you wake up, the tiger demon coaxed. The other adult demons had all lowered their gazes. The entrance of the cave was littered with countless demon bodies on its ice-cold ground. A soldier pulled his sword out of a demon, but a furry paw quickly wrapped around his leg, refusing to let go. Look at this trash. They want to slow us down to buy time for their cubs? They don't know their strength. The soldier twisted his lips impatiently as he cut off the paw of the dead demon. Chapter 2017. The Powerful Bullying the Weak. 2. The lizard demon clan, looking on at the side, glanced at the wrist of the rabbit demon being cut off and walked on into the cave. This cave leads to the other side of the snow mountain. The tiger demon and other adult demons who were escaping with the demon cub were traversing through the dark cave, the light at the end gradually getting bigger. We can escape along the river as long as we get out of this snow mountain. We're almost there. Hope was right in front of them. The adult demons rushed out of the snow mountain cave with the demon cubs they were protecting. In front of them, not too far away, was the river that could save them. But just as they were about to take another step, countless soldiers appeared in front of them. Where are you going? The Eternal Dynasty general sat tall atop his horse and lowered his chin slightly to look at the pathetic Northland demon tribe. The adult demons quickly hid the demon cubs behind them. Hand the demon cubs over obediently and I might be able to leave your corpses intact. In your dreams, the tiger demon roared as he revealed his sharp claws. I gave you an easy way out, but I guess you would rather suffer. The general let out a cold laugh, raised his chin and ordered, kill every single one of them and make sure you get every single of the cubs. With that one order, the Eternal Dynasty soldiers and the demons on the Ancient Yu clan's side all rushed towards them. Not many remained of the Northland demon tribe. There were only a few of them left now. But none of them cowered in the face of the army rushing at them. Uncle Tiger. The rabbit demon clutched the tiger demon's fur in terror. Turn around, he said. The rabbit demon froze and the other demon cubs stiffened as well. The tiger demon quickly turned them around so that they were back to back. As he was turning them around, one of the demons had already jumped in front of him. Blood spurted into the air. The trembling demon cubs could only hear the cold wind whistling past their ears and smell the stench of fresh blood in their noses. There would be no winning this battle. But the Northland demon tribe refused to give up. They would never hand the cubs over. They would fight till the last drop of blood left in their body. One by one, the adult demons fell behind the demon cubs they were trying to protect as they breathed their last. The tiger demon's leg had already been broken by another demon's jaws and was only attached to him with a few ligaments. Uncle Tiger! The rabbit demon had turned around at some point in time. His mind buzzed as he looked at the tiger demon's injuries, and he quickly ran forward with his arms spread out to protect him. Bad people? Don't you dare hurt Uncle Tiger. He was trembling in fear but stood his ground against the countless enemies in front of him. Don't hurt the cubs. They're still of use to the Ancient Yu clan. The general looked amusedly at the little rabbit demon and raised his hand for his men to take action. Seeing the approaching soldiers, the little rabbit demon shut his eyes in fear. But in the next second, a large bang resounded through the sky. The rabbit demon opened his eyes in fear. In front of him was a huge figure, blocking out his entire view and completely isolating him from the danger. Chapter 2018. The Powerful Bullying the Weak. 3. North Star Demon Lord? The heavily injured tiger demon looked at the figure which had dropped from the sky as hope lit up his eyes. The giant figure was the most powerful demon in the Northland demon tribe. It was the giant ape that had just been given the title of the North Star Demon Lord. Looking at the mess around him and his fallen comrades by his side, he roared as his eyes turned red and he glared at the despicable invaders. Another one seeking his death, the general said nonchalantly, his eyes cold. No matter who he was, how could he possibly go up against their huge army? Kill him, the general ordered, and the huge army rushed towards the North Star Demon Lord. The tiger demon looked at them in shock and struggled to stand up. North Star Demon Lord, leave with the children right now. I will hold them off. The North Star Demon Lord sighed and stopped the tiger demon who wanted to fight to the death for him. There's no need for that. They are the ones who are supposed to die. The tiger demon looked shocked. He was familiar with the North Star Demon Lord and knew that he was a simple and arrogant demon, but the situation before them was not one they could easily change. Was the North Star Demon Lord mad? But just as the tiger demon was wondering whether the North Star Demon Lord was biting off more than he could chew, several bolts of lightning suddenly fell from the sky and split the road the Eternal Dynasty army was marching through. Hundreds of soldiers were instantly vaporized and turned into black ashes. Before they could even understand what was happening, many figures had appeared along with the lightning. The figures appeared like ghosts and were so swift that in the blink of an eye, a whole group of the Eternal Dynasty soldiers were dead on the ground. The ground beneath their feet was instantly dyed in red. What's happening? The arrogant general was shocked by the sudden death of his soldiers and looked forward, only to see 8 figures stepping on the countless corpses of his soldiers. How dare these mere humans brag in front of our king? They don't deserve to live. The demon tribe smiled grotesquely as he raised his blood-stained axe. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Do you ancient U-Clan's dogs actually think that you would be able to do as you wished in the central mainland? The goblin tribe leader smiled darkly as he held a head he had just ripped off. You need to understand that you are just dogs if you're going to act as someone's dog. The goblin tribe leader's bone cracked as he moved his neck. The Eternal Dynasty general's eyes widened as he looked at the 8 tribe leaders in front of him. Who are you? How dare you ruin my plans? The edges of the goblin tribe leader's mouth curled upwards as he disappeared in a wisp of smoke. In the next second, he had appeared behind the general and had wrapped his sharp claws gently around his neck. I am one of the 8 tribe leaders in the Temple of Shadows, the goblin tribe leader. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, he slit the general's throat and ended his life. Blood spurted out from the general's wound all over him, but his smile remained grotesque. Chapter 2019, Strong Backup, 1. The Temple of Shadows. The traitorous demon tribes all widened their eyes in disbelief as the Eternal Dynasty soldiers looked even more shocked. Why would the Temple of Shadows appear here? The 8 tribe leaders, the demons and soldiers who had been wreaking havoc freely, suddenly felt intense fear. Kill them. An order rippled through the air. They lifted their head and saw a huge demon dragon flying above them. On top of its head was a girl wearing a golden mask, and this sent intense shivers down their spine. A golden mask. That was the symbol of the Holy Lord of Shadows. The 8 tribe leaders all transformed into demons on her orders as howling winds began blowing at them. The thousands of soldiers had no chance against the 8 tribe leaders. Under the attack of the 8 tribe leaders, the troops fell instantly. They had no room to retaliate at all. Many of the demons wanted to escape, but they had no way of leaving the battlefield at all. With a light wave of her hands, Yi Qingtang summoned arcs of light which rained down and erased everything. Nothing survived the rain of light. The tiger demon's eyes widened and his mouth dropped open in disbelief. The Northland demon tribe had always been weak and unsuited for battle due to their inexperience, which was why they had been defeated so easily. To them, the Eternal Dynasty troops and the traitorous demons were not opponents that they could go up against. But right now, the enemies who had destroyed their home and slaughtered their own were now being vaporized. Tens of thousands were dead in the blink of an eye. How terrifying their power was. Don't worry and hand this over to us. This is a healing elixir. Use it to heal yourself first, gather those kids up and follow us back to the Temple of Shadows. The North Star Demon Lord patted the shell-shocked tiger demon's shoulder reassuringly. The tiger demon quickly regained his senses and gratefulness filled his face. The Temple of Shadows is really willing to take us in? The North Star Demon Lord nodded. The tiger demon was trembling with excitement. The Temple of Shadows was the top power in the central mainland and was not something the demons could scoff at. And now they were willing to take them in. Are there any more dogs of the ancient U-Clan? The demon tribe leader walked over to the tiger demon with his battle axe, still unsatisfied with his kills. They still have troops scattered in the north. The demon tribe leader smiled widely as he heard this. Let's have a battle to see who can kill more, shall we? The demon tribe leader's eyes swept across the other tribe leaders. They had no objections. In the next second, the 8 tribe leaders all vanished from where they were standing and made the north their hunting ground. The tiger demon stared at all of this in shock but was in awe of the power of the Temple of Shadows. Yi Qingtang felt relieved as she saw the North Star Demon Lord comforting the demon cubs. She made her way to the north on Mingdi, looking for their enemies. The 8 tribe leaders were all killing joyfully and she didn't want them to leave anyone alive as well. But she still had questions for these people and had to make sure to capture a few of them alive. Chapter 2020, Strong Backup, 2. The destruction in Northland was far beyond Yi Qingtang's imagination. Tons of corpses were piled up as far as the eyes could see. The lackeys of the ancient Yu clan were about to kill just any demon tribe that was against them in Northland to capture the cubs. Everything changed once the Temple of Shadows joined the fight. The 8 tribe leaders were among the top few in the central mainland. No one else other than the formidable youths from the ancient Yu clan was their match. It only took less than 12 hours for them to clear out all the enemies in the Northland. Yi Qingtang captured a few generals and the leading demon tribes back to the Temple of Shadows to interrogate them. As for the relocation of the Northland demon tribe, she handed it to the Northland demon lord to settle everything as soon as possible. If not, once the ancient Yu clan learned of the news, they would send over the elite forces. Yi Qingtang immediately handed them over to Lady Ghost once she returned to the Temple of Shadows. If Lady Ghost wasn't capable of making them speak up, who would be? Sure enough, Lady Ghost did not disappoint her. It only took a few hours and the generals and demon tribes divulged everything. Lady Ghost reported the information to Yi Qingtang. The demon tribes didn't know much, but there was one general from the Eternal Dynasty that knew quite a bit. He knew even more than Yu Qiong. He told me that the ancient Yu clan had been secretly capturing cubs from demon tribes even before they started attacking the various clans. As for the cubs in the black market, the ancient Yu clan was also behind it. They instructed the Eternal Dynasty to buy those cubs. It was just as Yi Qingtang had expected. The ancient Yu clan had been after the demon cubs from long ago. They were also behind the disappearance of demon cubs previously. The Eternal Dynasty had been working with the ancient Yu clan for a long time. The general was in charge of transporting the cubs to the ancient Yu clan. He overheard that the cubs were a determining factor behind how many powerful forces there were in the ancient Yu clan. He didn't dare pry into it. However, it was enough to validate Yi Qingtang's guesses. Little Yu Yun's spiritual abode was indeed powerful, but for the ancient Yu clan to cultivate so many powerful youths in a short span of time, it certainly wasn't easy. However, the rest of the ancient Yu clan had a huge power gap from the youths. Yi Qingtang suspected that the ancient Yu clan used the cubs as primers to take in the energy from the spiritual abode. The spiritual abode was very strong, and if a human were to quickly absorb the energy, they would most probably explode and it would cause their death. The demons, on the other hand, had strong physiques, with the cubs having frail consciousness. If they were to absorb the energy from the spiritual abode and use the cubs' bodies as a cultivation medium, it would greatly reduce the probability of the explosion. It was likely that the cubs were used by the ancient Yu clan as a cultivation tool. The ancient Yu clan were desperate to find even more cubs because the cubs could only be used once. The absorption worked even better with young age, which explained why the ancient Yu clan cultivated youths that were even more powerful than the elders. Despicable. After figuring everything out, Yi Qingtang was even more disgusted by the ancient Yu clan. Those scum had gone too far. Chapter 2021, Strong Backup, 3. Yi Qingtang figured out the ancient Yu clan's use of the demon cubs now. Incidentally, the Crimson League had already fallen out with the ancient Yu clan. No wonder the ancient Yu clan was desperate to find more demon cubs as soon as possible. A plan began to form in Yi Qingtang's mind. She approached the Northland demon tribe to inform the demon tribes that hadn't been absorbed by the ancient Yu clan about the ordeal that the Northland demon tribe had experienced. She also released news about the ancient Yu clan capturing demon cubs for their own cultivation. If any demon tribe wanted to escape, they could try to seek help from the Temple of Shadows. Of course, Yi Qingtang didn't get the North Star Demon Lord to directly go to the Temple of Shadows. She merely released the rumors to hint at it. As long as they cut off the supply of demon cubs, the ancient Yu clan wouldn't be able to continue cultivating strong youths. Wasting no time, the North Star Demon Lord immediately moved to action. The next morning, Yi Qingtang received some news. The Crimson League's army had arrived in the central mainland and gathered at the Frost Abyss. It was almost war. I've handed all the ancient Yu clan's powers that I could find to me already. We shall see how me plans for the fight against the ancient Yu clan. Yi Qingtang came to look for Ling Yan once she learned of the news. The Crimson League would deal with those youths from the ancient Yu clan. Anyone else that went would just be akin to committing suicide. Yi Qingtang had already discussed with me how the Temple of Shadows was going to distribute its forces for clans that were seeking their protection, as well as forces to deal with the ancient Yu clan. At that moment, she had something even more important to do. Look for little Yu Yun. You might not need to come out at the start, but once we're halfway through the war you have to come out. Are you planning to go look for that person during this time? Ling Yan looked at Yi Qingtang as he asked. He seemed to already have an answer to that question. You're right. Yi Qingtang nodded. I know of someone who can help you with that, Ling Yan said. Who? Yi Qingtang was slightly shocked. Ling Yan didn't say anything yet. He just took out a bell and started ringing it. The bell didn't make any sound, but at that moment, someone knocked on the door. Getting up, Ling Yan moved to open the door. The guard that he had brought with him stood right outside. Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan, feeling perplexed. But Ling Yan only nodded at the guard. The guard removed his disguise and a familiar face appeared before Yi Qingtang's eyes. Ning Luo. Yi Qingtang's eyes widened in disbelief as the handsome youth appeared before her eyes. Ning Luo. A complicated expression crossed Yi Qingtang's face when she looked at Ning Luo. Was she supposed to call him Ice Frost Divine Sword instead? We meet again. Ning Luo looked at Yi Qingtang, and the corners of his mouth lifted. Yi Qingtang was speechless. How was she supposed to feel? Without a doubt, Yi Qingtang felt complicated. It was all because Ning Luo opened up a portion of the dimension wall. That was why everything happened. However, everything that Ning Luo did was to seek revenge for that extraordinary lady. Everything felt like reincarnation. It was just that Yi Qingtang hadn't expected to meet Ning Luo in the central mainland. Yi Qingtang's eyes riveted on Ling Yan. Everything seemed to be within Ling Yan's control. He knew that she was looking for little Yu Yun and Ning Luo was the extraordinary lattice sword. Was it a coincidence? Or did Ling Yan already arrange for everything when he was in the first mainland? Chapter 2022, Phenomenal War, 1. Ning Luo can sense where the person you're looking for is. With his help, you will be more successful in your search. Ling Yan looked at Yi Qingtang with a gentle smile. You think that he will help me? Yi Qingtang wasn't convinced that Ning Luo would be that nice. In helping you, he will be helping himself. Yi Qingtang instantly understood. Little Yu Yun was the reincarnation of the extraordinary lady. She had no idea how little Yu Yun was doing, but judging from little Luo Shui's situation, they were probably experiencing the same conditions. I will help you find her, but that is all that I will do. I have no interest in anything else that's happening in the central mainland. Ning Luo made himself clear. Ever since he had opened up the dimension wall, Ning Luo had left the first domain and never turned back. He hadn't expected his master to reincarnate after many years had passed. The only reason he had stayed behind in the central mainland was because he could feel his master. As for Ling Yan's expression turned a little strange and Ning Luo could see it with his peripheral vision, but he didn't say anything about it. Yi Qingtang looked at Ning Luo's complicated expression. Miss Yi, Ling Yan said. Yes. I have a suggestion. Ling Yan smiled. Tell me what's on your mind. Just as I said earlier, you're planning to look for her right when the Crimson League and Ancient Yu clan start fighting. However, this is not a good plan, Ling Yan said. What suggestion do you have? Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan. Since the Temple of Shadows has returned to the Crimson League, you must join the war. You have a better understanding of the central mainland than any others. Why don't you lead the Crimson League in fighting the Ancient Yu clan? Noticing that Yi Qingtang wasn't very much against his idea, he continued. Ning Luo can sense where she is. If you lead the Crimson League over, I'm sure he can sense it. Ling Yan's words completely enlightened Yi Qingtang. Instead of waiting, Why don't you make the move? You can destroy some of ancient Yu clan's important areas and perhaps sense little Yu Yun. Yi Qingtang's mind was whirring. This was a better idea and the Crimson League wouldn't suspect a thing. Ling Yan nodded. With Ling Yan's idea and Ning Luo joining them, she had greater hopes of finding little Yu Yun. With that, Yi Qingtang went to look for Mi Mi was the general for the Crimson League this time and had full control over the army. Yi Qingtang had originally not planned to join them, but with this new idea, she claimed that she had a better understanding of the ancient Yu clan's powers and sought to join them as the commander. Mi didn't think much about it and agreed. Yi Qingtang's first target was one of the ancient Yu clan's 3 most important spots. The Temple of Shadows was led by Commander Yi Qingtang. Ming Di, Ming Wang, Ming Gu and the 8 tribe leaders were also involved. Apart from them, the clans and powers under the Temple of Shadows' protection also joined the skirmish. A phenomenal war was about to take place. An entire army gathered at the plain. It was made up of the undead clan, humans as well as demons. At that moment, the wind howled from the north and everyone's eyes riveted on the demon dragon in the sky, Ming Di. And above Ming Di was a lithe figure wearing a gold mask that reflected the lights. Chapter 2023, Phenomenal War, 2. Are we really declaring war on the ancient Yu clan? One youth from the ancient clans panicked, looking at his friend with uncertainty. The Holy Lord announced it, so I think it should be the truth, an elder from the ancient clan said in response. The ancient Yu clan is so strong. Are we even their match? The ancient Yu clan destroyed so many ancient clans. They're remarkable. The Temple of Shadows will be fine with the Holy Lord of Shadows and Ming Di overseeing them, but for us, it's going to be death once war breaks out. Quite a number of the ancient clans panicked. They hated the ancient Yu clan's brazen ways, but at the same time, were afraid of how powerful the ancient Yu clan was. They had turned to the Temple of Shadows in order to stay alive. Now that they had to fight with the powerful ancient Yu clan, they quivered. Holy Lord, the ancient clans want to talk to you. Ming Wang flew into the sky and reported to Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang flew down after hearing the news, landing among the troop of ancient clans. The ancient clans had been waiting for some time. When they saw Yi Qingtang, they exchanged glances. Holy Lord! The master of the Bailey family stepped up and said, Holy Lord, will we be having a showdown with the ancient Yu clan? Of course, Yi Qingtang answered. The master's expression instantly darkened after hearing Yi Qingtang. Ming Wang's eyes narrowed. After a moment, the master of the Bailey family finally spoke. We're grateful for the Holy Lord's benevolence. We will help when the Temple of Shadows is in need, but all the ancient clans want us to stay alive. Those words were full of mockery towards Yi Qingtang. Lady Ghost and the others from the Temple of Shadows' expressions darkened when they heard the master of Bailey family's words. What do you mean? Lady Ghost asked with a cold voice. The master of the Bailey family answered. The ancient Yu clan is after the fragments of the spirit of chaos and we've already handed the fragments to the Holy Lord of Shadows. To be frank, we have nothing to do with the ancient Yu clan now. We'll be glad if the Temple of Shadows plans to deal with the ancient Yu clan, but we've suffered so much already, we don't have the capacity to join the war. We will be waiting for the Holy Lord's good news. Although the master of the Bailey family was indirect about it, there was no one present who did not understand what he meant. The ancient clans didn't plan to fight it out with the ancient Yu clan after experiencing their prowess. You want to leave? Lady Ghost scoffed. The masters of the ancient clans didn't say a word. After all, Lady Ghost was right. You humans are ridiculous. Who was the one who begged the Temple of Shadows to save your lives? Now that we have to fight the enemies, all of you are backing out and getting the Temple of Shadows to take the front line. How manipulative. Lady Ghost's eyes narrowed furiously, slamming the metal whip on the ground. We are grateful for the Holy Lord's help. It's just that the fragments of the spirit of chaos are no longer in our hands. We no longer have any conflict with the ancient Yu clan, one master said shamelessly. Yi Qingtang just watched them without saying a word or giving any reaction. Everyone was waiting for Yi Qingtang's response. After all, the ancient clans would never dare to leave without hearing from the Holy Lord of Shadows. Chapter 2024, Phenomenal War, 3. After all, the power of the Temple of Shadows was not something they could go against. If you fear for your lives, you can all leave now. A cold laugh suddenly came from within the ancient clan's camp. Yi Qingtang froze as she heard that and turned to look at the voice. Everyone turned to look as well and was greeted by the sight of a beautiful girl with a cold smile staring at them. Moe was the one who had spoken up. She looked at those from the ancient clans frostily and sneered, "Ancient clan? You call yourself an ancient clan? You're just a bunch of death-fearing cowards. Dogs that have lost their homes. Did you forget that you were all scared off by the ancient Yu clan and could only come to hide at the Temple of Shadows? Pathetic. You all don't have an ounce of courage within you. How dare you call yourselves ancient clans?" Nicely said. Jiang Lang looked at his wife with eyes full of love. Who here understands how powerful the ancient Yu clan is more than my Jiang family? You can renounce your title as an ancient clan and run along to the ancient Yu clan to beg for mercy if you're so scared. Maybe they'll show you some mercy. Jiang Lang looked at the people around him in contempt. They all turned pale at Jiang Lang and his wife's words. But their words made Yi Qingtang laugh lightly. They were her parents all right and represented the spirit of the ancient clans. Scared? Who isn't scared? The Jiang family was wiped out by a single person from the ancient Yu clan. The difference in power is too great. The Bailey family clan master said with a frown. That's right. Why do we have to tag along and die if the Temple of Shadows is confident in themselves? We're not a match for the ancient Yu clan. Many of them were unwilling to join the fight. They had been brought there by force and constantly wanted to leave the army. With that, the ancient clans started discussing among themselves. Jiang Lang and Moe looked at all of this with cold smiles on their faces. They had long since seen through the facade of the ancient clans. But were still alive. A clear, cold voice suddenly rang out. The Bailey family elder looked towards the voice and was surprised that it came from someone from his own family clan, Bailey Shi. Beside him was a petite girl. She was pale but her eyes were filled with admiration for Bailey Shi. I want to live a good life. If we can only live our lives in shame from now on, I would rather die in battle. Bailey Shi looked with resolve at his family clan elder as he walked with the petite girl towards Yi Qingtang. I want to fight for my dignity and formally request to join the Holy Lord's army. Yi Qingtang looked at Bailey Shi who had been through thick and thin with her, and a smile flashed across her face. So do I. Another voice rang out and a girl with a cold expression stepped out from the crowd. She walked over to Bailey Shi. Mu Feirua? The Mu family clan master's face darkened as he saw her speak up. Hadn't they already discussed in secret to leave the Holy Lord of Shadows' army? However, who knew that their own family clan members would ruin everything at this crucial moment. Yi Qingtang felt joy fill her heart as she saw the two familiar faces. Get back here at once, the Mu family master instructed coldly. In response, she turned to look coldly at her father. Father, you're planning to trample on the Mu fam one Eileen's good reputation that we have upheld for tens of thousands of years? Chapter 2025, Allied Forces, 1. The Mu family clan master was shocked. Mu Feirua looked at the whispering ancient clans and said, should we grovel and hide away just because the ancient Yu clan is powerful? How hard did our ancestors work to build us into ancient clans? Are we going to let ourselves become a joke just like that? Yes, they might be able to live out the rest of their lives if they ran away now. But how would they ever dare to show their faces again under the constant threat of massacre from the ancient Yu clan? Their glory and pride would be reduced to nothing, trampled and forgotten in a sea of embarrassment. All of their pride and dignity would be crushed by their desire to survive. Holy Lord, please count me in as well. Another ancient clan member stepped forward. I hope the Holy Lord does not mind that my strength is lacking. As long as I can help wipe the ancient Yu clan out, I am willing to offer everything I have, another youth said sincerely. With his words, more and more ancient clan youth stepped up, ignoring the unhappy glances of the clan elders, and walked resolutely towards Yi Qingtang. Father, when mother and elder sister died by the hands of the ancient Yu clan, you said that we would get revenge one day. Have you forgotten how cruelly they killed our people? An ancient clan youth looked at his reluctant father. Many of the ancient clans had flocked to the Temple of Shadows to seek refuge in an extremely short amount of time. But not all of them had reached safely. After some of them had left to seek refuge, the remaining people became the ancient Yu clan's targets. There had been many deaths and countless ancient clan people had perished in the hands of the ancient Yu clan. The clan elders all shouldered a heavy burden and none of them wanted their clan to perish under their rule. The youths on the other hand were filled with passion and sincerity. You're right. We still haven't avenged the deaths of Yun Yang and Linger. How can I run away? The middle-aged clan member's eyes reddened and he stepped forward decisively. More and more ancient clan members were understanding the situation. Rather than spend the rest of their lives in hiding, they should go out in an intense battle. That way, they could still live like humans. The clan elders who were still opposed to it had complicated expressions on their face, but finally let go after seeing that most of the ancient clan people had made their decisions. Holy Lord, forgive us for our foolishness. We have nothing to fear even if we are fighting to the death with the ancient Yu clan if you are with us. A clan master looked at Yi Qingtang with determination in his eyes. Their clan's reputation couldn't be ruined by them running away. They still had a chance if they chose to fight. There would be no hope at all if they chose to run. Yi Qingtang smiled. She knew that the ancient clans would be afraid. After all, the longer their power accumulated, the more they had to lose. And they no longer had anything to lose. Who said that we're the only one fighting against the ancient Yu clan? Yi Qingtang said as she lifted her eyes. The ancient clans had no idea what she was saying and followed her gaze. A black line suddenly appeared on the other side of the plain. Many black figures were flying towards them in the air. That's... An ancient clan elder's eyes widened in disbelief. Thousands of flying mounts raced across the sky as countless alien race clans rushed towards them like waves of the ocean. Chapter 2026, Allied Forces, 2. A red flag was flying in the wind with them. It's the Crimson League. Is that the Crimson League's flag? A stunned ancient clan master asked. Yi Qingtang looked happily at their reaction. Only the higher-ups of the Temple of Shadows were aware of the fact that the Crimson League was going to help them and everyone else was none the wiser. She wanted to root out those who still had no intention of fighting so they could leave first. But it seemed like they had all chosen to stay in the end. This was no longer a mere battle between two powers and was now a war involving the entire mainland. Holy Lord, the Crimson League will be participating in the battle as well? A clan elder looked at Yi Qingtang agitatedly. Bai Ji and the other members had visited the Temple of Shadows previously but had not left a good impression on the ancient clans. They knew that these alien race members from the second domain were extremely eccentric and wouldn't hesitate to take their lives, so the ancient clan people had all avoided them while they were at the Temple of Shadows. They had no interest in any news regarding them as well. They had all thought that the three alien race members had visited the temple to discuss other matters with the Holy Lord of Shadows. Never in a million years would they have imagined that the Crimson League would participate in this battle and that so many of them would be joining. That's right. From now on, they will be our allies, Yi Qingtang said. That simple sentence raised their spirits greatly. They had already prepared for themselves to be utterly wiped out, but who would have thought that? Yi Qingtang would have such a formidable card up her sleeve. The Crimson League, the strongest power in the second domain. The people were finally seeing a sliver of hope in defeating the ancient Yu clan. That meant the mutant wind snake was now on their side. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, he flew down slowly and landed beside Yi Qingtang. Mo Yao, the Crimson League army is all present. We will be commencing the attack on the ancient Yu clan. An ethereal voice entered the heads of every single ancient clan member like thunder. The Temple of Shadows members all looked relatively calmer as they had come from the second domain with the Holy Lord of Shadows, but the ancient clan members were all looking with utter joy at the Crimson League army. The Crimson League was made up entirely of alien races. Thousands of flying mounts soared in the sky, blocking out the sun. Even though the ancient clans were all powerful of their own accord in the central mainland, they couldn't help but gasp as they looked at the impressive army. The Crimson League had not held back at all. The flying mounts took all their breaths away. Just one of these mounts would be enough to cause a huge stir in a battle within the first domain. And the Crimson League had thousands of them. There was a wind snake in the Mu family clan, but it wasn't even worth mentioning in front of the mutant wind snake. So this was the might of the second domain. Enough to destroy the first domain. This was the first time Yi Qingtang was seeing the Crimson League army as well. It looked magnificent. But she couldn't reveal too much of her feelings, so she merely nodded at Mo and flew off on Mingdi. We are heading to the ancient Yu clan this instant. Boom, boom, boom. The war drums thundered on as the two armies converged and headed towards the ancient Yu clan. Chapter 2027, Battle 1, at the ancient Yu clan. What did you say? An elder exclaimed as he looked darkly at his underling. Elder, the Temple of Shadows army has already started attacking from the east, the soldier reported. It seemed that the demon dragon from the Temple of Shadows had started encircling the ancient Yu clan's territory not long ago. Behind him marched a huge troop of soldiers who swept past the border. Are they mad? The elder in charge of the ancient Yu clan's forces raised his eyebrows. Even though there had always been friction between the two of them, neither of them had ever had the intention of making a move. So why was the Temple of Shadows suddenly attacking them? Elder, what should we do? What should we do? The elder laughed coldly and continued, since the Temple of Shadows has come seeking its death, there is no need for us to show any mercy. Bring my orders to the youths who are out right now. I'll make sure the Temple of Shadows meets its doom here today. But elder, about the Crimson League, some people were still hesitant. Elder Mo's underlings had stolen something belonging to the Crimson League a while back, and now the Temple of Shadows was attacking them. Elder Mo hasn't given us any news about his situation, so there shouldn't be a problem there. The Crimson League is from the second domain anyway, and it's a separate matter if we have some misunderstanding with them. We should deal with the Temple of Shadows first, the elder said dismissively. The elder quickly ordered for his troops to prepare for a battle with the Temple of Shadows. Within the ancient Yu clan's territory, Yi Qingtang was seated on Mingdi with her troops following behind her. She quickly spotted a white-haired elder leading a huge group of people as they walked out from the ancient Yu clan's abode. Within the group were many fresh-faced youths. Holy Lord of Shadows, how have you been? The elder raised his eyes to look at Yi Qingtang above him and asked with a cold smile. His eyes then swept across the army behind them. Oh, the Bailey family? The Mu family. I've known them for a long time now. What? Did the Holy Lord come forward today with all these lost dogs to submit to us? The faces of the ancient clans sank as they heard his insult. Yutsong, nothing good ever comes out of that cursed mouth of yours. The ancient Yu clan has harmed many of our ancient clan people, and we're here to return the favor today. Return the favor? Elder Tsong sneered as he heard the words. You think you'll be able to do that? Now that you're here, don't even think of leaving this place alive. A dark look flashed past his face. After all, they had sought refuge in the Temple of Shadows along with the spirit of chaos fragments they had. He could easily wipe them out today and gather all the remaining fragments. Once it was done, he would be killing two birds with one stone. What big words, Yi Qingtang said lightly as she flew in the air. I want to see whether the ancient Yu clan has the ability to wipe us out. Elder Tsong laughed coldly and said, Ability? He suddenly raised his hands, and the 10 youths who had been cultivated by the spiritual abode suddenly rushed forward. In an instant, waves of their forces began their attack. Just these youths alone are enough to wipe you out. Chapter 2028, Battle 2. A cold gaze was fixated on the powerful youths as Yi Qingtang studied them carefully. Underneath her mask, she was panicking a little. Oh, and I would like to see whether the youths of the ancient Yu clan are strong enough to go up against the powers of the second domain. Elder Tsong froze, not understanding what she had just said. In the next moment, the howls of beasts started coming from the Temple of Shadows army. Hundreds of flying mounts took to the skies behind her and flew onwards. A red flag was flying in the wind with them. Elder Tsong's face crumbled. The Crimson League? His eyes widened and he couldn't believe that the flying army behind her was from the Crimson League. Before he could even come to his senses, many alien races appeared from within the troops of the Temple of Shadows. What was going on? He was completely and utterly shocked. Never would he have even dreamt that the alien races of the Crimson League would appear with the Temple of Shadows. Mi stood above the mutant wind snake. Elder Sowing, is that the Crimson League's army? An ancient Yu clan soldier's eyes widened in disbelief as his mouth dropped open. Beside him, Elder Sowing's arrogance had completely vanished. His brows furrowed together and he couldn't understand what was going on. Hadn't Elder Mo gone to settle things with the Crimson League already? Why was the Crimson League joining the battle? He had not paid any heed to the Temple of Shadows army at all, but it was a different story if the Crimson League was involved. May I know why the esteemed members of the Crimson League are here? Has there been some misunderstanding? Elder Sowing forced himself to keep calm as he asked as his eyes turned towards the mutant wind snake. Even if the entire central mainland were to gather their forces against them, they could still wipe them out easily. But the Crimson League was from the second domain. Misunderstanding. Mi spoke slowly and softly. The ancient Yu clan has insulted the Crimson League again and again. How can you say that it's just a misunderstanding? Bai Ji said coldly. Cold sweat peppered Elder Sowing's forehead. We have always respected the Crimson League. If this is about the Netherworld Ring, we will make sure to settle the matter properly with the Crimson League. HM? And how are you going to do that? Bai Ji asked. Today's battle is between the Temple of Shadows and the ancient Yu clan. If we owe anything to the Crimson League, we will make sure to compensate the Crimson League accordingly. Elder Sowing wanted nothing more than to have the Crimson League gone. Bai Ji remained silent as she looked at me on the mutant wind snake. Compensate? Mi asked. That's right. As long as the Crimson League does not treat us as hostiles, we are willing to fulfill any requests you have. Elder Sowing spoke amicably. This was not the time for them to be fighting the second domain. If that's the case, I want you to hand over all the Spirit of Chaos fragments you own. Only then will we consider sparing your lives, Mi demanded. Chapter 2029, Battle, 3. Elder Sowing's face darkened as soon as those words were out of his mouth. So the Crimson League wanted the Spirit of Chaos fragments as well. Looking at them from the side, Yi Qingtang was not worried at all. The ancient Yu clan wouldn't be the ancient Yu clan if they were handed the fragments over willingly. And just as she had predicted, Elder Sowing's face darkened when he heard Mi's demands. What? You don't want to? If you're not going to hand it over, we'll have to take it ourselves. Bai Ji was already filled with murderous intent towards the ancient Yu clan which had made a fool of them many times now. Seeing Elder Sowing's reluctance, her eyes flashed dangerously. Wasting no time, Bai Ji swiftly attacked the ancient Yu clan in the blink of an eye. Since the Crimson League had made the first move, Elder Sowing realized that they had nothing to discuss. He ordered the ancient Yu clan youths and soldiers to attack as well. Both sides quickly meshed together. The most lethal part of the ancient Yu clan was its youths. But now that the Crimson League was dealing with them, it took a huge burden off the Alliance's shoulders as they just had to deal with the troops. Even though the ancient Yu clan had gotten stronger, the power of their troops was nothing compared to the youths. But they were still considered extremely powerful on the central mainland. The ancient clans finally lost their cool as their suppressed emotions welled up and overpowered them. They attacked the ancient Yu clan troops with every ounce of their being. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang stood on top of Ming Di as they swept the battlefield. Ming Di opened his mouth wide and his burning breath was hot enough to burn down their enemies. Yi Qingtang leaped up from his back and entered the battle. She turned into a ray of cold light which destroyed everything in her path. Even though she was no match for the youths, she could handle the other ancient Yu clan troops easily. Yi Qingtang had continued cultivating herself all this time and had already entered the second heaven state. Amid the battle, her eye swept over the battlefield, and the sight she saw left her tongue-tied. Those youths who could single-handedly wipe out entire ancient clans were not shown any mercy at all from Bai Ji and the others from the Crimson League. Even though she had been to the second domain before, she had never interacted with the forces of the Crimson League. She could now see with her own eyes that the fact that the Crimson League's prominence in the second domain was not a lie at all. As soon as she confirmed that the Crimson League could indeed take on the youths, Yi Qingtang began looking for Ning Luo. Before she came, she had asked Ning Luo to hide within the army. She quickly spotted Ning Luo's figure sweeping past the battlefield, flying by many people as he took advantage of the chaos to infiltrate the ancient Yu clan. Heart trembling, she quickly smashed the head of an ancient Yu clan soldier and flew after him. The fight was shaking the ground and the skies, and everyone who had fighting capability from the ancient Yu clan had joined the battle. Yi Qingtang quickly caught up with Ning Luo. She quickly sneaked in after seeing that the ancient Yu clan abode was empty. "What do you sense?" she asked him. Ning Luo shook his head slightly. "The place is so vast that I can't sense things well." "Continue inwards then," she said. Ning Luo nodded. Chapter 2030, Big Victory, 1. Using Ning Luo's perception, they quickly searched the entire residence. But Ning Luo didn't sense anything familiar. Yi Qingtang grabbed hold of a servant and demanded to know if there was a secret room. The servant had already been shaking when he saw her. Seeing that she had already made her way into the residence, how would he dare keep information from her? He quickly spilled all the information. There was a prison hidden in a part of the residence, and the servant had no idea who was being held there. Only the top members of the ancient Yu clan could enter the prison. Releasing the servant, Yi Qingtang quickly headed over with Ning Luo. It was pitch-black darkness in the prison, and the stench of rotten flesh filled their nose the moment they entered. She froze as she walked further in and saw what was inside. A few lamps lit up the dark space. On the uneven walls were dried streaks of blood. In the corner of the prison lay a pile of rotting demon pelts. The stench was so nauseating it was unbearable. The prison was empty save for the rotting pelts. Yi Qingtang's face was apprehensive as she gazed at the demon pelts. The pelts weren't big, and she could tell that they were from the demon cubs. It was the same as the information Yu Qiong had given her. But seeing it with her own eyes was vastly different, and she was hit with a sudden rush of feelings. "She's not here." Ning Luo looked coldly at the cruel sight before him, his eyes impassive. Yi Qingtang came to her senses and nodded slightly. Just as Ning Luo was about to leave, sparks shot out of Yi Qingtang's hands, and she set the demon pelts on fire, along with the reminders of the atrocities and cruelty committed in the place. The flames lit up her golden mask and flickered in her eyes, masking her real emotions. Without saying a word, she turned to leave after the flames rose. She suddenly thought of the primordial humans who had betrayed the true God. How far could humans go for their power and desires? Back on the battlefield, it was clear that the Crimson League had an overwhelming advantage. Elder Song looked at the fallen youths as his heart sank. "Elder Song, I don't think we can hold out any longer." A soldier rushed to Elder Song pathetically with blood covering his face. The youths of the ancient Yu clan could fight against the alien races, but the numbers that the Crimson League had simply far overwhelmed them. "Retreat." Seeing that they had no choice of winning, without any hesitation, Elder Tsong quickly finished off the ancient clan elder he was fighting against and began escaping amongst the chaos of the battle. With the departure of their youths, it was only a matter of time before the ancient Yu clan was defeated. The remaining forces were no match for the Crimson League at all, and they were taken care of swiftly. After the battle had calmed down, the ancient clans glanced at the countless corpses from the ancient Yu clan under their feet. Their eyes were unusually calm. Chapter 2031, Big Victory, 2. We won? Elder, we just won against the ancient Yu clan. A stunned ancient clan youth quickly came to his senses and shouted excitedly. He was shaking so hard he could barely support himself. The entire central mainland had been in a state of panic ever since the rise of the ancient Yu clan. How many ancient clans had perished cruelly under the ancient Yu clan's hands, and how many of them had escaped from their home to seek refuge at the Temple of Shadows? And now, the ancient Yu clan, which they had seen as invincible, had suffered their first defeat. After a moment of dead silence, the ancient clans and demon clan realized their victory and roared in joy. They could finally vent their suppressed anger. They won. I guess this is the limit of the ancient Yu clan as a power of the first domain. It's nothing special at all. It's a wonder someone like them even managed to overtake the whole central mainland. The ancient Yu clan is from the first domain, but their fighting power has far surpassed it and is now at the level of the Hing state, Mi said. Even though they were victorious, he had to admit that their power had far surpassed the level of the first domain. They might even be able to become a formidable power in the second domain. However, they would be nothing compared to the Crimson League. You're giving them too much credit, Mi? Bai Ji didn't feel the same way. She had never paid any heed to the powers of the first domain. To her, they were no more than ants. The ancient Yu clan has risen for less than a year. They had trained the youths to surpass the power of the first domain in merely 1 year. It was truly shocking. If they were to let the ancient Yu clan be, they might have been able to elevate the entire clan's power to surpass the first domain. Their power would rise by over 100-fold if that happened. Bai Ji let out a non-committal sound. Yi Qingtang had returned and she was not surprised by their victory at all. She knew that the ancient Yu clan was doomed the moment she saw the Crimson League's forces. She had overheard what Mi had said as well. The ancient Yu clan had not actually planned to advance rashly. They had only limited their power to the first domain and only wanted to grow slowly before taking the next step. They had not planned on provoking the second domain at all. However, but they were extremely unlucky. They never expected that Yi Qingtang would stir up trouble between them and the Crimson League when they had yet to amass their power. They would never in a million years have imagined that they would meet with such a disaster. I'll leave the rest to you. Mi looked at her and left with the Crimson League. She immediately understood what he meant. She immediately asked for Ming Wang to send people over to clean up the battlefield. Elder Sowing had fled, and 1/3 of the ancient Yu clan's forces had been taken care of. All their riches and resources were theirs now. Chapter 2032, Big Victory, 3. The ancient Yu clan's foundation ran deep and Yi Qingtang managed to get many things just from their treasure house. Even the space rings that the youths were carrying around were seized by Yi Qingtang. Apart from the Dharma treasures, she unexpectedly found several fragments of the spirit of chaos as well. Bring the corpses of these youths back. She glanced back at the fallen bodies of the youths after collecting the fragments. There was something she had to check. It was whether their powers had anything to do with the disappearance of all those demon cubs. The reason they had won so smoothly today was due to Elder Song's unprepared state and the Crimson League's overwhelming power. Like that, the Temple of Shadows had just finished their search and came away with huge gains. Elder Song, who had barely escaped with his life, returned pathetically to the main ancient Yu clan residence along with a few people. Clan Master, the Temple of Shadows has joined forces with the Crimson League and attacked the ancient Yu clan. Please make a decision soon. Elder Song exclaimed as he stood ashen-faced in the main hall. On both sides of the main hall were the elders of the ancient Yu clan, and above them was a 40-year-old man looking extremely solemn. It was the ancient Yu clan's clan master. The clan master was stoic in the face of Elder Song's exclamations. He spoke calmly, "I know." What? Elder Song was taken aback and didn't understand what he was saying. The Temple of Shadows used to belong to the Crimson League. They were only kicked out because the Holy Lord of Shadows went missing previously. Now that she is back, it's only natural that they return to the Crimson League, another elder said. Elder Song's face froze as he glanced at the elders. He suddenly realized that none of them were shocked by the battle with the Crimson League. It was as though they had already expected this to happen. Elder Song's heart stopped for a moment. He suddenly recalled how 2 days before the attack, the clan master had ordered the youths who were still cultivating back to the main residence. He had also ordered the more capable man under Elder Song to return as well, leaving behind only the weaker youths. He hadn't thought much about it initially, but now he suddenly thought of something. Could it be? He had ordered the powerful people to return as he knew that the Temple of Shadows had joined the Crimson League and that they were going to attack soon? Just as he was worrying over this, the clan master spoke up once again. Elder Song, since you fought with the Crimson League, I want you to report on their troop strength. His heart sank as he heard this. So, he was a pawn used to test out the Crimson League's strength. Even though he had finally figured this out, he did not dare show any signs of dissatisfaction and spilled everything to the clan master. The clan master frowned as he finished his recount. The Crimson League sent so many soldiers to the central mainland? Chapter 2033, Chaos. 1. Elder Tsong didn't dare hide anything and spilled all the information. The Crimson League demanded that we hand over all our Spirit of Chaos fragments. What? The clan master's frown deepened. So the Crimson League is interested in the fragments as well? An elder asked in surprise. One of the elders spoke up. The Spirit of Chaos fragments are extremely rare. Since they are from the second domain, it makes sense that they are interested in it and would explain why they are suddenly attacking us. It seems like Elder Emo was right. The elders started discussing among themselves. They had already decided among themselves that the Crimson League was there for the Spirit of Chaos fragments and that the Netherworld Ring had just been an excuse. Little did they know that the instigator of all this was Yi Qingtang. Elder Emo, you were right about all of this, but the only reason it has blown up so much is because you were incompetent in the first place, an elder who disliked Elder Emo said. Elder Mo's face darkened instantly and he looked at Yu Qiong standing by his side. Yu Qiong's heart trembled as he looked to the ground. The clan master looked at everyone in the main hall and spoke after a while. I want everyone to increase the speed of catching the demon cubs and ask the youths that are still out to move. This is not the time to go against the Crimson League. The elders all looked dissatisfied at the clan master's orders for them to avoid battle. It was an important time for the rise of the ancient Yu clan, and running away from the battle now would mean huge losses for them. I will be leaving for a few days. If you have matters you wish to discuss, it can wait until I return. With that order made, the clan master turned and left. With that said and decided, the elders all turned and left as well. Yu Qiong seized this opportunity to hide in an area without anyone and contact Yi Qingtang. He then told her everything that had happened. You're saying that the ancient Yu clan is starting to shift their forces? That seems to be the case based on what the clan master said. Do you know where they are going? Yi Qingtang knew that the place they were moving to would definitely be hiding something important. Perhaps little Yu Yun was there. I'm not sure. The clan master was vague about it, and the other elders have never mentioned it before either. He suddenly sensed someone approaching and quickly hid the voice transmission stone, turning around as though nothing was happening. Elder Mo was staring at Yu Qiong with a dark expression. Yu Qiong could feel that something was amiss. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang was waiting for Yu Qiong to continue his sentence when his voice was suddenly cut off. She suddenly heard a shrill scream from the voice transmission stone. Elder Mo, what are you doing? Yu Qiong's terrified voice floated over from the stone. Yi Qingtang's heart gave a heavy jolt. There was a sudden loud noise before all the sounds were completely cut off, as though the stone had been broken in two. This was bad. Yu Qiong was in danger. Her brows furrowed together. Even though she had forced Yu Qiong to be a spy, she wouldn't just leave him to die since she had already made use of him. Not only that, she was even able to find out the ancient Yu clan's next move based on the information that he had provided. Chapter 2034, Chaos. 2. Yi Qingtang wanted to look for me but bumped into Ling Yan as she walked out of the door. Do you need something from me? She asked. Ling Yan brushed past her and said, Will Miss Yi take me somewhere? Now. Yi Qingtang was slightly shocked. That's right. Now. Where? Yi Qingtang knew that he wouldn't ask her to bring him somewhere if there wasn't something going on. There had to be some special reason for this. The Hall of Gloom, he said. Hall of Gloom? Yi Qingtang was taken aback. That place didn't hold any good memories for her. Why do you want to go there? You'll understand once you go, Ling Yan said with a smile, clearly not at all in a rush to reveal the answer. Yi Qingtang glared at him. She really wanted to smack him sometimes. But she wasted no time and brought him to the Hall of Gloom immediately. The Hall of Gloom was shrouded in darkness, with only a single lamp lighting it. Why did you want to come here? Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan. Could Miss Yi please open the pagoda of the dead for me? Yi Qingtang kept silent. What exactly did Ling Yan have up his sleeves? She had no idea what Ling Yan was thinking of doing but flew up to retrieve the lamp. The Hall of Gloom suddenly started shaking as she took the lamp. With a mighty quake, black fumes of death suddenly spurted out from the huge skeleton's mouth that was carved on the ground. The endless fumes of death entwined to form a mirage of the pagoda of the dead. An altar suddenly appeared at the top of the pagoda. I see Miss Yi is already familiar with everything in the Temple of Shadows. Ling Yan smiled as he saw how Yi Qingtang opened the pagoda of the dead so easily. Her mouth twitched. How could she not be familiar? She had a deep impression of the first time Lady Ghost had opened the pagoda of the dead. What do you want to do? You're not asking me to pay respects to the dead now, right? Of course not. Miss Yi, please follow me into the pagoda. Without revealing much, Ling Yan continued into the pagoda. Annoyed, she grabbed Ling Yan's wrist and flew up to the top of the pagoda of the dead. Miss Yi is so powerful, Ling Yan said with a laugh. She felt like killing him right now. If you're not going to tell me what you plan on doing, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself anymore. She would end him with a slap. Miss Yi, you have some unique interests. It's way too cold here, but you can lose control all you want when we're in your room, Ling Yan said with a smile. Yi Qingtang was speechless. Would it be too late if she threw him down now? Sensing her murderous intent, he quickly changed the topic and looked at the altar on top of the pagoda. Many years had passed since people last visited the altar, and it was covered in gray dust. Ling Yan raised his hands to brush it off. After he wiped the dust off, she realized that there was a circle on top of the altar with inscriptions of the undead clan around it. Yi Qingtang had been in a hurry the first time she had been there and had not noticed the inscriptions. What's this? She asked in curiosity. Chapter 2035. Chaos 3. Ling Yan smiled slightly and suddenly stretched his fingers out. He stuck them into the 5 crevices of the circle and turned it. There was a loud crack. The huge altar started vibrating and a huge fissure appeared on it. As the crack widened, a pillar ascended from it. Gray smoke started gushing out and gradually took on a form. Within the pillar was a gray vessel. It seemed like the vessel had been there for quite some time now and they couldn't make out what it was made of. The spirit of chaos has been broken down into many fragments. If you want to recast it, it's not as simple as just collecting all the fragments. Ling Yan looked at the gray vessel with a smile in his eyes. When the spirit of chaos first appeared, it was encased in a gray vessel. When it was shattered into fragments, the vessel was split into 2 as well, with one piece guarded by the powerful domain monarch's family clan and the other by another strong ancient clan. But that family clan gradually weakened as thousands of years passed and their piece of the vessel fell into the hands of the Holy Lord of Shadows. So this is the vessel that was carrying the spirit of chaos. Yi Qingtang stared in doubt at the unassuming gray vessels in front of her. Ling Yan nodded. The ancient Yu clan will need at least one of the vessels if they want to rebuild the spirit of chaos, which is why the Jiang family was one of their main targets. They not only wanted their spirit of chaos fragments, but also 1/2 of the vessel. They can recast the spirit of chaos as long as they put the fragments into 1/2 of the vessel. Ling Yan looked at Yi Qingtang as he said this. Doesn't Miss Yi have quite a few fragments on hand as well? You can try if you wish. Yi Qingtang looked at Ling Yan and opened her space ring. She took out the fragments of the spirit of chaos she had and placed them in the gray vessel. The gray fragments suddenly started shining as they dropped inside. The light enveloped the fragments as they floated on top of the vessel and stopped moving after a while. A strange look crossed her face as she sensed a strong power coming from within the light. This is the only way the spirit of chaos fragments can be recast into the actual thing. I know that Miss Yi wants to hand the spirit of chaos over to the Crimson League, and this makes it easier. Since they don't know how to rebuild it, you can just tell them how to, Ling Yan said as he smiled at her. As long as I gather all the fragments and put them in here, I can recast the spirit of chaos, she said. Ling Yan pondered for a moment before speaking up. That might not be the case. Even after placing all the fragments into the vessel, you have to wait 7,749 days for it to be recast. Yi Qingtang nodded her head in understanding, but her expression turned complicated as she looked at Ling Yan. Ling Yan, is there anything under the sun that you don't know? There were probably only a handful of elders from the ancient clans who knew how to recast the spirit of chaos, but Ling Yan knew the steps exactly. Chapter 2036, Chaos 4. Ling Yan looked at her. Under the light, he could see himself reflected in her eyes. Miss Yi, you don't have to know how much I know. All you need to know is that no matter what, I will always be on your side. Yi Qingtang looked surprised as she gazed at him in the dim light. In terms of his looks, he really was the most beautiful person she had ever seen in her life. She never cared about a person's look, but Ling Yan looked especially beautiful today. "Miss Yi, I'm not sure what I'm going to do if you keep looking at me like this," he said with a light laugh. She was jolted back to reality by his words. "Do you want to die?" she asked as she twisted her lips. Ling Yan covered his mouth and rocked with silent laughter. Yi Qingtang quickly looked away to dispel those thoughts from her mind. Taking the spirit of chaos fragments from her space ring, she placed them into the vessel. Every fragment she placed in the vessel would shine with light, then float up to merge with the other fragments. The scattered fragments gradually formed an incomplete hemisphere. She realized after placing all the fragments in the vessel that a few pieces were lying inside it. They were neither shining nor floating up and did not look any different from what they had been. "Are these few fragments spoiled?" she asked curiously. Ling Yan looked at the fragments and took them out of the container before taking Yi Qingtang's hand smoothly and placing the fragments in her palm. "These fragments are fake." "Fake?" Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Ling Yan smiled and said, "When the spirit of chaos was shattered, the fragments were indeed divided up among the ancient clans. But there were many clans in the central mainland and not everyone managed to get their hands on a fragment. Furthermore, it has been a long time since the fragments first appeared. In that time, many clans have disappeared and their fragments have either ended up in the clutches of the other clans or other forces. There are even some clans with 2 to 3 fragments, and some of them have used these fragments in exchange for favors. In order not to stir up suspicion, they created fake fragments. If those fragments were fake, why didn't they just confess to the ancient Yu clan?" Yi Qingtang didn't understand why they hadn't just confessed that their fragments were fake and spared themselves the slaughter that was happening because of the fragments. But she arrived at the answer as soon as the words were out of her mouth. This was the same as how she had used a fake netherworld ring to provoke the Crimson League. Even if they confessed that their fragments were fake and handed them over to the ancient Yu clan, the clan might not have believed them. They would rather kill off thousands of them than spare a single person. "I see that Miss Yi understands as well," Ling Yan said with a smile. "There's no way that they can differentiate between the real and fake fragments without the vessel. The spirit of chaos fragments don't emit any energy after all." Chapter 2037, Return 1. Yi Qingtang knew perfectly well that the ancient Yu clan wouldn't have let a single one of them off regardless of whether their fragments were real or not. A thought hit her suddenly. The Holy Lord of Shadows had a fragment of the spirit of chaos which she brought with her when she left. "I've searched the entire temple but have yet to find it. Do you think it was real or fake?" Ling Yan laughed and said, "The ancient clan that the Holy Lord of Shadows took the fragment from had already fallen a long time ago. What do you think?" She stayed silent. Since the ancient clan used to exchange the fragments for favors, an ancient clan that was on the decline would already have given it up a long time ago. Even though the spirit of chaos was extremely powerful, there was no use holding on to just its fragments. To some of the ancient clans, the prosperity of their clan was more important than the useless fragments. So that means that the Crimson League has a good chance of recasting the spirit of chaos? Yi Qingtang's was feeling extremely conflicted right now. She had agreed so readily to help the Crimson League obtain all the fragments in the first place as she had thought that the Holy Lord of Shadows had taken a peace with her. If that was so, there was no way to recast the spirit of chaos. But now, that might not be the case. "Miss Yi, you don't have to worry about this. Aren't you completely uninterested in the spirit of chaos?" Ling Yan said reassuringly. After another thought, Yi Qingtang agreed that she harbored no interest in the spirit of chaos at all. Her only goal was to rescue little Yu Yun and free the lives of everyone in the First Mainland. A wave of relief washed over her as she thought of this. She flew down with Ling Yan and placed the lamp back where it was. But she had to admit that the way the Holy Lord of Shadows had hidden the vessel within the altar was ingenious. No one would know it was there if they didn't know where to look. However, how did Ling Yan know about it? She looked at him with a strange expression. He sensed her gaze and his smile widened. Holy Lord! She was extremely confused. Why was he suddenly calling her the Holy Lord? The day has turned to night. Holy Lord, if you have needs, we can return to your room. Yi Qingtang was speechless. What was he saying? Could he speak properly for once? She was still in a state of confusion when out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Lady Ghost with a group of patrolling undead clan soldiers. They were looking ambiguously at both of them. She suddenly realized that they were in a corner, with Ling Yan standing on the inside. From Lady Ghost's point of view, it looked like Yi Qingtang had forced Ling Yan into the corner. Along with what he had just said, her reputation was completely tarnished. That's enough, she said harshly as their whispers reached her ears. Not allowing him to speak any further, she quickly dragged him away. Who knew what words might come out of his mouth if they continued staying there? Lady Ghost watched as Yi Qingtang brought her male pet back into her room, with an ambiguous smile on her face. Feeling Lady Ghost's knowing gaze on her, Yi Qingtang couldn't help but quicken her pace. Would someone deal with this rascal for her? Chapter 2038. Return. 2. Ling Yan didn't enter Yi Qingtang's room and was instead forced back into his room. The little azure dragon looked calmly at him being thrown back into his room. You'll be beaten to death one day, it said coldly. Ling Yan looked at it without saying a word. The little azure dragon continued, Yi Qingtang is never going to want to see your face again if she finds out what you have planned. I'll change my face then, he said with a smile. The little azure dragon could feel a headache coming on. Ling Yan, I really can't read you at all. I come from the Azure Dragon clan and can be considered rather intelligent, which is why I've been able to predict your plans up to 3 steps ahead. But beyond that, I really have no idea what you're planning. Ling Yan took off his coat and leaned lazily on his chair. He rested his face on one hand and gazed at the perplexed little azure dragon. You'll understand when it happens. Yi Qingtang went to find me and brought him to the Hall of Gloom to show him the vessel. All that was left was to take the rest of the fragments from the ancient Yu clan. She gave him a suggestion. The ancient Yu clan has been sending the youths to gather the fragments. I managed to obtain a few from the space rings after defeating them previously. Since this is the case, why not just defeat all their forces so we can gather the fragments more quickly? Yi Qingtang said, pretending to be serious. But she had her own motives for doing this. She had to determine little Yu Yun's location and find Yu Qiong. Her conversation with him had been cut off the last time they talked, and she felt extremely uneasy about it. But he had not told her his location, so she had no way of rescuing him quickly even if she wanted to. It would be faster to destroy the ancient Yu clan's forces to look for him rather than look around aimlessly. Since the Crimson League's goal was to obtain all the fragments, they naturally had no issue with her suggestion. The Crimson League and Temple of Shadows quickly joined forces to attack the ancient Yu clan. The ancient Yu clan had been on the rise previously and had been arrogantly flaunting their might, which had led to the location of their forces being revealed. Riding on Ming Di, Yi Qingtang swept away the ancient Yu clan's forces along with the Crimson League. Like this, the situation on the central mainland was quickly reversed. Those who had chosen to follow the ancient Yu clan because of their might were all suffering now. They had been the loyal dogs of the ancient Yu clan and had wreaked much havoc for them. But now the ancient Yu clan couldn't even protect themselves, let alone them. But as they got rid of the ancient Yu clan's forces, Yi Qingtang realized that they had been hiding their forces. Even after defeating many of their strongholds, they had yet to come across important people. They had not encountered many of the youths as well. The ancient clans all cheered as they saw the ancient Yu clan's forces fall one by one. They were extremely grateful to Yi Qingtang and the Temple of Shadows. But Yi Qingtang couldn't be happy at all. She still had no idea where Yu Qiong was, and Ning Luo hadn't been able to sense Yu Yun at the locations they had been as well. Even though she was the one who had started this, it was beginning to feel like a losing battle. But this was all interrupted by Yu Qiong's new information. Holy Lord! A voice suddenly rang out of the voice transmission stone, which had been silent for half a month. Chapter 2039. Return. 3. Yu Qiong sounded extremely tired and weak, but Yi Qingtang was relieved to hear his voice. What happened to you? She asked. A bitter laugh came from the voice transmission stone. I'm not going to die so easily. What happened that day? She asked. Yu Qiong explained everything that happened that day to her. On that day, The clan master was extremely unhappy with Elder Mo. Even though he had not said it out loud, his attitude made it obvious. It was no surprise that Elder Mo had been in an even worse mood. The problem with the Crimson League had started from him. Even though they all thought that the Crimson League was merely using that as an excuse, Elder Mo was the one who had given them the opportunity to do so after all. There was no way he could argue back at them, so he could only vent his anger on Yu Qiong. Since Yu Qiong was the one who had informed him of the situation, Elder Mo had beaten him up severely before leaving. While Elder Mo wasn't going to kill him, he wasn't going to let him go as well. He planned to let Yu Qiong take the fall for all his problems. Fortunately, he didn't have to worry for his life until he came back. "Where are you now?" "Don't worry, I will be sure to save you." Yi Qingtang breathed a sigh of relief after learning that his life wasn't in danger. Yu Qiong was stunned for a moment before saying, "I was brought with them to a certain place. It seems to be at the Winter Canyon in the West region, and they seem to be converging with the other forces here. They will be here for another 2 days. The Winter Canyon?" Yi Qingtang frowned slowly. The Winter Canyon was in a rather remote place, and legend stated that great demons were once stationed there. Humans rarely approached the place. The ancient Yu clan's power was mostly concentrated in the east. If Yu Qiong had not informed her of this, she would never have thought that they still had power in the west. "All right, please hang in there. I will be sure to save you," she said. There was some commotion on Yu Qiong's side, and their connection was suddenly cut off. Since she had just received this critical information, Yi Qingtang prepared to leave soon after. In the Winter Canyon, the ancient Yu clan troops had set up camp under flickering flames. Yu Qiong was locked up in a huge metal cage and looked extremely frail. His entire body was covered in wounds, and he seemed to be on his last legs. Putting away the voice transmission stone carefully, he lay on the cold ground without moving. His gaze trailed silently towards the cage by his side. The cage was stuffed full of bloody bodies. They were all demon cubs. Their pelts had all been stripped off, and their raw skin was exposed to the cold, cruel air. Just a light touch brought them great pain. But the cubs, whose voices were long hoarse from shouting, were already numb to all of this. They were covered in a layer of powder which helped stop their bleeding and allowed them to breathe. Yu Qiong had been kept with them these few days, and all he smelled was blood mixed in with medicine. He had personally witnessed these cubs being skinned alive before they were thrown into the cells. Those poor, naive cubs could only stare at their pelts in fear. Chapter 2040, Return 4. Having grown up in the ancient Yu clan, Yu Qiong was no stranger to their ways. But now that he was witnessing this from the other side, he was completely horrified at their methods. He couldn't help but think of what Yi Qingtang had said. She had said that she was going to rescue him. How laughable. He was her pawn after all, and had lost all use after being discarded by the ancient Yu clan. She would be mad to come and save this useless pawn. Having witnessed so much of the ancient Yu clan's cruel methods, he felt that her words were just to comfort her alone. Bring them out. A few ancient Yu clan soldiers walked in and grabbed a few bloody cubs from the cage. The demon cubs started struggling in a frenzy as they dug their blood-stained claws into the ground, but were still dragged out by force. Long claw marks dragged behind them on the ground. A few cubs would be dragged off each day, and those who left never returned. Yu Qiong stood up and saw the cubs being brought over to the campfire, where Elder Mo forced glowing orbs down their throats. The light illuminated them from the inside. After that, the cubs were thrown to the ground, where they struggled in pain as though they were about to die. They twitched on the ground for a long time as the light enveloped their body. Several youths from the ancient Yu clan came out from the tents. Their eyes shone silver as they gazed at the glowing cubs hungrily, and they pounced on them as though they were food. Yu Qiong could hear as clear as day the anguished cries of the demon cubs. They could only look on as their flesh was torn from their bodies by the youths right in front of their eyes, and they were eaten alive. The youths looked like feral beasts. And the demon cubs were alive throughout the entire ordeal. They were devoured until all that remained was blood-stained bones, which were thrown into the huge pot on the fire to be made into soup, which the ancient Yu clan people drank as they chatted around the campfire. Yu Qiong felt extremely nauseous when he saw this. Fortunately for him, Elder Mo hated him. The most he did was search for him on some days, and he had never shared the demon bone soup before. He could tell that the soup was precious, and ordinary members of the clan were only spared a scarce amount. How deplorable! He looked at the cage full of demon cubs. Seeing their own kind being devoured alive for them was just like looking into their future. They were all just waiting to suffer the same fate. Some of them had already gone mad from the fear, but no one cared whether they were sane or not. They only cared for their flesh. It was only now that Yu Qiong realized why the ancient Yu clan had been capturing so many demon cubs. He had been cruelly awoken to reality after many days of not knowing the truth. Lifting his eyes once again, it was only to be greeted by the furious face of Elder Mo, who was looking at him. He had a whip in his hands. It was stained with blood that Yu Qiong knew belonged to him. Chapter 2041. Slaughter. 1. Elder Mo whipped Yu Qiong harshly with the whip but was unhappy when he showed no reaction at all. I allowed you back into the ancient Yu clan that day after seeing how pitiful you were. I didn't expect you to bring such misfortune. Elder Mo gazed at Yu Qiong's bloodied face. He had no idea what he used to look like. Yu Qiong didn't stir at all. Elder Mo was not about to let him go this easily and was about to whip him again when there was a commotion from within the camp. Furrowing his brows, he abandoned Yu Qiong to go check out the situation. He froze when he saw the scene. The great Ming Di soared in the sky with a figure on his head. Behind him were over 10 flying mounts, and behind those were a group of alien race figures. What's happening? Elder Mo looked at the silhouette in the sky with widened eyes as a sense of foreboding overtook him. Likewise, the other members of the ancient Yu clan ran out of the camp. The 2 elders and wardens with Elder Mo ran out as well. The Holy Lord of Shadows, what is she doing here? Elder Mo's eyes were filled with shock. The road to the west region that the ancient Yu clan had taken was extremely obscure. Only the elders and those higher knew of it, and anyone outside did not know the path. Elder Mo, we meet again. Yi Qingtang looked down at him as she stood against the wind. Elder Mo's face was extremely dark. Holy Lord of Shadows, don't be too arrogant. You're just riding the coattails of the Crimson League. He snapped. That's right. So what? Her mouth under the mask curved slightly. Elder Mo was inflamed by her words. He had never met a more shameless person. Elder Mo, surrender if you don't wish to die, and hand over all the fragments of the spirit of chaos you have on hand. Maybe then I'll consider sparing your lives, Yi Qingtang said. In your dreams, Elder Mo said with a cold laugh, but he was internally calculating the difference in strength between them. They had 3 troops as well as over 100 powerful Yus with them right now. If they just went by numbers, Yi Qingtang's side did not hold any advantage. Perhaps they had a chance after all. I guess you're choosing the hard way then, she said as she raised a hand, signaling for the Crimson League to attack. Kill them all. Elder Mo ordered. Both sides clashed in an instant. The number of ancient Yu clan youths and alien race people that Yi Qingtang had brought numbered roughly the same, and they began fighting with each other. But the ancient Yu clan had thousands of other people on their side who rushed towards the battle as well. Narrowing her eyes, Yi Qingtang gestured for Ming Di to rush forward with the flying mounts. A dragon's roar tore through the sky. Ming Di flew downwards as he breathed hot air on all of them. The heat wave incinerated anyone who came in contact with it. The elders and warden rushed into the battle as well. They brought with them 2 youths as they rushed towards Yi Qingtang. She leaped off Ming Di as he swiped his tail at the 2 approaching youths. Chapter 2042. Slaughter. 2. Yi Qingtang turned into a ray of light and black flames appeared in her palms the moment she hit the ground. Within seconds the flames turned into a black sword. She swung it around the head of an ancient Yu clan warden and he collapsed to the ground. Holy Lord of Shadows, well, fight to the death with you. Elder Mo roared as he raised his hands at her. Quickly dodging Hao blow, she hid her surprise. To think that his power was already at the Paragon 5th Heavenly Venerate level? She had her own plans and didn't want to face off with Elder Mo right now. She flew over him and sliced another warden in 2. An uneasy feeling grew from within as Elder Mo saw 2 people dying right in front of him. The Holy Lord of Shadows' power had long surpassed the Holy Venerate level. Even if the elders worked together to fight her, it would be difficult. He had struck out in anger just now, but now that he had calmed down, he was fearful of her powers. Little did they know that Yi Qingtang's current power was 3 levels lower than Elder Mo's. But just her reputation was enough to make them hesitate. On the other side of the battle, the two youths couldn't hold out against Ming Di for long and were quickly squashed into meat pancakes. Ming Di quickly flew over to Yi Qingtang, imposing as a mountain behind her. His shadow gave Elder Mo and the rest of them a great sense of oppression. I can give all of you one chance. Yi Qingtang withdrew her flames and stared at the ashen-faced elders. I'll spare you if you can defeat Ming Di, she said lightly. They rejoiced when they heard that. Even though it was said that Ming Di's strength was as great as the Holy Lord of Shadows, the pressure that the Holy Lord gave them was far greater. Yi Qingtang's words gave them a ray of hope. Even though they couldn't defeat the Holy Lord of Shadows, they might have a chance against Ming Di. They might stand a chance at winning. Yi Qingtang secretly sighed with relief as she saw their reactions. She could probably defeat Elder Mo if she used all her strength, but there was no way she could win against all of the elders. After all, she wasn't the real Holy Lord of Shadows. But Ming Di was the real thing. She didn't want to fight in front of so many alien race people from the Crimson League in case they saw through her. Furthermore, if Ming Di realized that she was a fake, she would be doomed. Stop wasting time. Make sure to attack all at once. Ming Di said, his blood boiling. Ever since the Crimson League joined them, he had had to divide his kills with them. Over the past few battles, he hadn't been able to kill to his satisfaction at all. He was going to kill as many as he liked today. Elder Mo and the rest looked at each other and all rushed towards Ming Di. With an almighty roar, Ming Di turned to face them. The skies and earth were torn apart as the shockwaves rippled through the area. The entire canyon shook as boulders shattered and fell from the cliffs. Chapter 2043, Slaughter 3, Roar after roar erupted from the canyon. Yu Qiong picked himself up pathetically in the cage and gripped the bars tightly as he looked towards the battle. How? His eyes widened as he looked at the fight and the golden-masked Yi Qingtang in surprise. She had really come? Why would she do that for someone as useless as he was? It was true he had never believed she would fulfill her words. He had never confessed that he betrayed the ancient Yu clan as well since he knew what they did to traitors. That would definitely be 100 times more painful than this. In fact, he had already prepared himself for death and never thought that. Her arrival had caused him to completely challenge his outlook on the world. No one in the ancient Yu clan would ever care for a worthless scrap like him. A smile suddenly appeared on tortured lips, then he started laughing even as it tore at the wound on his face. Back on the battlefield, Elder Mo and the rest were no match for Ming Di at all. Even though they had been cultivated by the spiritual abode, they were unable to ascend too many realms due to their own bodies. They weren't even as strong as the youths. Wasting no time, Ming Di quickly stomped one of the elders to death while another elder was already on the verge of death. One of Elder Mo's feet was already broken by Ming Di's tail, and he lay on the ground in a pathetic heap. Just as Ming Di was about to finish him off, Yi Qingtang stopped him. Spare him. I need him. Even though Ming Di wasn't pleased to hear this, he realized that the battle between the alien races and the youths was not over, so he quickly plunged into the fight to vent his insatiable need to kill. Elder Mo was at a complete and utter loss and could only watch as Yi Qingtang walked towards him. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw one of the elders draw his last breath. He could feel a sense of fear that he had never felt before engulf him. Holy Lord! Please don't kill me. He threw away all his pride as a clan elder in the face of death and started begging for his life. Where is Yu Qiong? She asked. Elder Mo froze, not knowing how she knew Yu Qiong. He's in the cages at the camp. He didn't dare to mess around and quickly pointed to the tent where Yu Qiong was. Yi Qingtang glanced at where he pointed, grabbed him by the head, and flew over to the tent. The stench of blood and medicine assaulted her the moment she entered, causing her to frown. Her eyes swept over the area and what she saw made her blood freeze. A group of skinned demon cubs lay trembling in a dark cage, blood running all over the floor as the stench of blood filled the air. It was a scene from the depths of hell. The humble Yu Qiong greets the Holy Lord. A feeble voice entered her ears and brought her back to reality. She turned to look in the direction of the voice and saw a blood-covered Yu Qiong kneeling on the ground, greeting her. The humble Yu Qiong? Greets the Holy Lord? Elder Mo glared at him furiously as he heard those words. So you were working under the Holy Lord of Shadows. You were the one who betrayed the ancient Yu clan. Chapter 2044. Spiritual Abode. Yu Qiong looked calmly at the seething Elder Mo. Elder Mo shivered when Yu Qiong looked at him, as everything that didn't add up previously flooded into his mind. Hadn't they robbed the Temple of Shadows based on his information? And after that, he was the one who had volunteered to go to the Temple of Shadows to beg the Crimson League for mercy as well. So the Holy Lord of Shadows had been orchestrating this from behind the shadows all this time. Yu Qiong! Elder Mo yelled. He hadn't expected a dog he had kept by his side to bite him. But he was stomped to the ground by Yi Qingtang before he could keep cursing at him. What's wrong with him being loyal to me? She looked coldly at Elder Mo on the ground, who was sweating coldly. After all, his life was in her hands right now and he didn't dare complain anymore. He could only lower his head silently. She ignored him. He was only being left alive so that she could question him. She broke the lock with her hands and handed several healing elixirs to Yu Qiong. Taking the elixirs, he was finally able to calm himself slightly. Yi Qingtang looked at the terrified demon cubs. Even though she had already heard of their plight from Yu Qiong, it was still difficult for her to see it herself. Without saying a word, she freed them all from their cell. The demon cubs were all scared out of their wits. During this time, they had seen the human race kill their parents, eat their friends, and skin them alive. Their fear towards the human race had reached a peak. They couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts even though they were facing Yi Qingtang. But they were rather dependent on Yu Qiong, who had shared some of his food with them out of pity. Stay here and take care of them, Yi Qingtang said as she handed more medicine to him. He took the medication from her. She looked at his battered face, which was barely recognizable. She had originally planned to make him a mask after bringing him back to the temple so that me would not recognize him. After all, she had killed him right in front of me. But it seemed that that wouldn't be necessary anymore. Ming Di and the rest had already completely wiped out the ancient Yu clan youths when she left the camp, so she threw Elder Mo over to him to monitor. She then asked them to take away their space rings and look for other items they could take. Soon enough, there were people reporting to her about a unique item in one of the tents. They wanted her to look at it as they were unsure of what it was. She noticed that Elder Mo's expression changed when they pointed to the tent. Was it something important? She immediately headed over. In the tent was a huge fire tripod. Rays of light were shining through it. It felt extremely familiar to her, but she couldn't quite place it. What is this? She asked Elder Mo frostily. Chapter 2045. Spiritual Abode 2. That's... Elder Mo was acting strange and his eyes were darting around. Yi Qingtang's eyes narrowed and she gave Ming Di a look. He raised one claw and pierced it through Elder Mo's shoulder. Elder Mo screamed terribly as he turned pale and started trembling from the pain. The next thing I pierce through is going to be your heart if you don't reply, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Mo panted and he didn't dare keep anything from them. That's the spiritual abode. Yi Qingtang frowned as she heard those two words. What do you mean? She forced herself to stay calm as she asked him. Terrified of being killed by Ming Di, Elder Mo spilled everything. A while ago, we brought back a girl from the first mainland. She had a spiritual abode and my clan master knew that that would help to raise our power, so he let her cultivate her spiritual abode for us to absorb. And it wasn't just for the spiritual abode itself. They realized they could achieve even better effects if they cultivated themselves under the influence of the spiritual abode. That girl was extremely important to the ancient Yu clan and they didn't want anyone else to know her whereabouts, which was why they hid her in a secret location in the West region. No one other than the clan master and a few elders knew her location. The power from the spiritual abode that the little girl had cultivated was placed in a special fire tripod and sent to various groups of the ancient Yu clan for them to cultivate their strength. And what about the demon cubs? She asked. Elder Mo didn't dare hide any information from them and said, while the power of the spiritual abode is great and could help us strengthen ourselves, it brought great risks as well. The demon cubs are much stronger than us, So we use them as a vessel to transfer power. We get them to absorb the power first before we eat their flesh. The power of the spiritual abode became a lot gentler after being refined in the demon cubs' bodies, and the ancient Yu clan members didn't have to worry about exploding. Once they had come under the influence of the gentler spiritual abode power, they could then head to where the spiritual abode was to cultivate themselves for maximum efficacy. Of course, the absorption of power was dependent on age and talent as well. The amount of power that Elder Mo and the other elders, who were already rather old, was a lot less than the youths. They had skinned the demon cubs so that they could absorb the spiritual abode better. All this was just to strengthen the ancient Yu clan. Everyone else were victims. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath. What Elder Mo had said wasn't far from what she had guessed, but hearing it from his mouth still made her shudder. "Where is that girl?" she finally asked after regaining her composure. She just wanted to know where little Yu Yun was. "At the edge of the west region." "I've never been there. This is my first time here," Elder Mo said carefully. There were many elders in the ancient Yu clan, and Elder Mo was not one of the more important ones. It was only because the other elders were busy cultivating at the spiritual abode that he was left in charge of the main forces. Chapter 2046, Spiritual Abode, 3. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes as Ming Di prepared to attack again. Elder Mo quickly spoke up, "But I have a map. I can give it to you." He took out the map hurriedly and handed it over to her. She glanced at it and called Yu Qiong over to check for anything amiss. "This is a map that the ancient Yu clan uses. There shouldn't be anything wrong with it," he said. It was only then that Yi Qingtang could relax. She memorized the map and handed it over to one of the alien race people. "Bring this back to the temple and hand it to me. Tell him that if nothing is wrong, the main forces of the ancient Yu clan should be here. He should hurry over there with his men if he wants the rest of the spirit of chaos fragments," she said. The alien race person took the map and looked apprehensively at her. "Shouldn't she be telling me this personally?" Yu Qiong was curious as well. "Holy Lord, you can't be thinking," she nodded slightly. She had to check this place out. Fortunately, she had brought Ning Luo along this time, even though his principle had not changed. He only wanted to find Yu Yun, and all other matters were inconsequential to him, which was why he would not lift a finger in battle. So she would leave soon with Ning Luo to check whether little Yu Yun was there. The place was shrouded in secrecy and no one knew what happened there. If little Yu Yun was truly there, she had to prevent them from secretly moving her once another battle started. It was going to be difficult to find her if they moved her again. So she wanted to confirm the location and find little Yu Yun as soon as possible. Once she had given all the orders, she was about to leave with Ning Luo when Yu Qiong spoke up. "Holy Lord, please allow me to go with you." Yi Qingtang froze as she looked at the injured Yu Qiong. A strange look flashed past her eyes. Yu Qiong said, "I'm a member of the ancient Yu clan after all. If you trust me, it will be more convenient if you bring me along." In the past, he had been someone who would do anything to save his own skin, but he had a change of heart after being rescued by Yi Qingtang. He used to think that the saying, "a gentleman would die for his greatest friend," was a joke, but he was finally experiencing it today. "But you're hurt," she was worried, but not about his betrayal. "That's not an issue. This is just a flesh wound and I'm feeling much better after using your medication." After thinking about it for a moment, she nodded. Elder Mo wanted nothing more than for them to forget his presence, but Yi Qingtang handed Yu Qiong a sword after thinking about something. He immediately understood her intentions. Elder Mo had exhausted his use here. "Yu Qiong, please don't kill me," he pleaded desperately as he started to panic. He would never have imagined that he would one day be in this position. Without a change in his expression, Yu Qiong whipped the sword around and sliced his neck. A smile was on his face as he watched Elder Mo collapse to the ground. With Ning Luo and Yu Qiong in hand, Yi Qingtang began her search for little Yu Yun. Meanwhile, the alien race people collected the demon cubs and headed back to the Temple of Shadows with the map. Chapter 2047, Underground World, 1. The ancient Yu clan had kept their powers in the west region well hidden. Yi Qingtang and Yu Qiong took a few days before they finally found the spot that was marked on the map. When they finally reached the exact location, all they saw was a stretch of mountains. There wasn't anyone from the ancient Yu clan at all. Is the map fake? Yi Qingtang looked at the stretch of mountains and her brows furrowed. No. Ning Luo suddenly spoke. Yi Qingtang looked towards him and he just closed his eyes, seemingly feeling something. I can sense that. Master is here. Ning Luo opened his eyes. It has been a long since he last felt this way. The breath was weak, but he was certain that little Yu Yun was somewhere around the area. He couldn't confirm where she was since the breath was too weak. Ning Luo's words made Yi Qingtang's heart flutter. On the other hand, Yu Qiong's gaze shifted around. A thought suddenly struck him. I think I know where the ancient Yu clan's men are now. Yi Qingtang looked at Yu Qiong. Yu Qiong's facial injuries had started recovering since he started applying medicine to it. All that was left behind were gruesome-looking scars. At that moment, he had no time to explain anything to Yi Qingtang. He just leaped and flew onto the highest peak among the stretch of mountains. Yi Qingtang and Ning Luo followed right after him. As Yu Qiong stood on the peak, his eyes crinkled while looking in the direction of the sun. Back when I was still with the ancient Yu clan, they had a secret stronghold. It was only because of some accident that the clan master and elders decided to change the location. They considered various locations, and the west region was one of the options. 10,000 years ago, Yu Qiong was still the great elder of the ancient Yu clan. At his position, he was naturally involved in such confidential matters of the ancient Yu clan. If I'm not wrong, the location of the stronghold is right beneath that mountain. Yu Qiong lifted his hand, pointing at the location right beneath the sun. The summit virtually had no presence as it hid among the other mountains. It wasn't noticeable at all. Are you sure? Ning Luo looked at Yu Qiong cautiously. Yu Qiong nodded. I talked to the clan master and the other elders about the change of location, and I know that they considered the west region before. Hearing this, Yi Qingtang and Ning Luo's eyes flashed with excitement. At that moment, Ning Luo wanted to fly towards that mountain, but Yu Qiong stopped him. Hold on. What's the matter? Ning Luo was perplexed. Yu Qiong turned to look at Yi Qingtang, clasping his hands respectfully as he said, Holy Lord, you should not use ordinary ways if you want to find the ancient Yu clan's location. The ancient Yu clan's stronghold should be hidden somewhere underground and all entrances will be heavily guarded. If you're planning to just barge inside, you will not be able to hide from them. You would expose yourself and not be able to find a thing. Do you have any ideas? Yi Qingtang looked at Yu Qiong. I certainly have ideas. I was originally from the ancient Yu clan after all. If I enter the place, no one would suspect a thing. However, I would have to trouble the two of you to disguise yourselves before we head inside together. Chapter 2048, Underground World 2, Yu Qiong had requested to come with them because of that. No one knew the ancient Yu clan better than him. Feeling that Yu Qiong's idea was a good one, Yi Qingtang and Ning Luo disguised their appearances. Yi Qingtang disguised as Elder Mo since she had already taken Elder Mo's space ring previously. On the other hand, Ning Luo disguised as one of the wardens under Elder Mo. Holy Lord, the ancient Yu clan has a strict grade system. Though Elder Mo is one of ancient Yu clan's elders, from what I know, he's not highly ranked. Most of the inner sect elders had already moved here long ago. Yu Qiong briefly explained in case Yi Qingtang didn't know about the ancient Yu clan structure. The ancient Yu clan's elders had different grades. The inner sect elders were of higher rank, followed by elders in charge of legislative matters and martial arts. Yi Qingtang previously met those elders who were promoted at a later stage and were of lower rank. They would only have the opportunity to come into contact with the core members of the ancient Yu clan once they enter the West region. Ever since they had gained control of the spiritual abode, they had been cultivating and absorbing energy from the spiritual abode. Even Yu Qiong had no idea how powerful they had gotten. Above the elders were the clan elder and grand elder. The ancient Yu clan's grand elder and the domain monarch founder were equally powerful and still remained powerful up until now. Now, the clan master was merely holding a temporary position in the ancient Yu clan. The ones truly controlling the ancient Yu clan were the clan elder and grand elder. Holy Lord, you have to be careful once we enter the ancient Yu clan. Yu Qiong looked at Yi Qingtang with a serious expression. Yi Qingtang nodded. She certainly knew she had to keep her guard up. After making sure everything was clear for them, Yu Qiong took Yi Qingtang and Ning Luo to the entrance of the ancient Yu clan. Right beneath the barely noticeable summit was a discreet cave. They walked into the cave and weren't able to find anything even after walking for a long time. However, Yi Qingtang noticed the ground beneath them was a slope, which meant that they were walking downwards, going underground. After a long journey, Yu Qiong noticed a huge stone door hidden deep inside the cave. The stone door was covered in moss, with Yi Qingtang noticing that the corners of the stone door were missing some moss. Looking at Yi Qingtang, Yu Qiong whispered, "Give me a minute." With that, Yu Qiong walked in front and studied the totem on the door. He lifted his arm, pressing the door with a pattern. Right after he did that, the stone door opened just like that. The ancient Yu clan's guards appeared fully armed behind the stone door. When they noticed the door was ajar, they looked at Yu Qiong and the others warily. They only put away their weapons when they saw Yi Qingtang, who was disguised as Elder Mo. With a domineering demeanor, Yi Qingtang nodded and walked through the stone door with Yu Qiong and Ning Luo. Yi Qingtang's eyes widened when she saw what was behind the stone door. Chapter 2049, Underground World, 3. It was like a whole other world. The ancient Yu clan had dug an entire world into the ground, and it was so vast that she couldn't even see the ends of the place. There were springs, streams, green trees and pavilions everywhere. Countless luminescent pearls hung from above, illuminating the entire underground world. How much power did the ancient Yu clan have hidden? With the Temple of Shadow's power, Yi Qingtang thought that she had already investigated the ancient Yu clan thoroughly. But that didn't seem to be the case anymore. No wonder they hadn't reacted at all even when one of their 3 sects was taken out. It turned out they had already begun preparing for everything and had created an underground world where no one could investigate them. Elder Mo, you came at the right time. Elder Yuan is waiting for you, a guard said respectfully. Elder Yuan? She didn't recognize that name but nodded as the guard led the way. But Yu Qiong, who was standing beside her, balked at his name. So he's still alive, he murmured. Seeing his odd expression and hearing what he had said, she asked him, "You know him?" He steeled himself and said, "Holy Lord, we go a long way back." Elder Yuan was already an elder of the ancient Yu clan when Yu Qiong became one. They often butted heads as Yu Qiong was well-versed in scheming while Elder Yuan respected martial arts more. After so many years, Yu Qiong thought that he would already be dead and didn't expect him to still be alive. "Holy Lord, you have to be careful when you meet Elder Yuan. Our powers used to be on par with each other, but he has probably gotten even stronger. He is extremely ruthless as well, so please be careful." She acknowledged his advice and followed the guard into a pavilion. The guard asked her to wait for a while as he went to inform Elder Yuan of their arrival. After a long while, a haggard man walked into the room with his back straight and standing tall. He walked slowly and there seemed to be a glow around him. "Why is it just you two? Where are the rest?" He frowned as he saw only Yi Qingtang and Yu Qiong in the room. Yi Qingtang looked at him and was stunned. It was him. This white-robed old man was the one who had led the ancient Yu clan to attack the first mainland and take little Yu Yun away from her all those years ago. Despite having prepared herself, she was taken by surprise. She had asked Lady Ghost and the rest to look up the white-robed old man back when she was investigating the ancient Yu clan, but they had not been able to find anything. So, it turned out that he was Elder Yuan. Yi Qingtang quickly came to her senses and suppressed her feelings. On the surface, she spoke to him politely. "Greetings, Elder Yuan. We ran into a huge group of escaping demons on the way. The other 2 elders decided to hunt for the demon cubs while we headed here first to report back to you." This was the story that Yu Qiong and her had discussed previously. After all, the ancient Yu clan needed to have enough demons to sacrifice if they wanted more power. Chapter 2050. Pagoda capturing demon cubs had become more difficult due to interference from the Temple of Shadows previously. Elder Yuan didn't think much of her words. The ancient Yu clan was in dire need of demon cubs after all. "Understood. You can leave," Elder Yuan spat at them impatiently before leaving. They had their own rooms here, and the guard left after showing them to their quarters. They waited till there was no one before Ning Luo spoke up. "I could feel her aura on him." That was not the only thing that he had sensed when he saw Elder Yuan. He had also sensed that his master was here. Her aura was incredibly thick and filled the entire underground world. She's here? Yi Qingtang asked as she looked at him. He nodded. Definitely. She pondered for a moment. They had not raised any suspicion with the people of the ancient Yu clan, and so they should be able to move freely. Ning Luo, try to sense it more clearly and see if you can tell where she is. We'll go look for her now. Ning Luo agreed. Even though Yu Qiong had no idea who they were searching for, he could tell that she was important from what they were saying. Holy Lord, please be careful. He was going to stay here in case anything happened. Yi Qingtang nodded and followed Ning Luo out. This was the first time Elder Mo had set foot here, so she could use the excuse of familiarizing herself to wander around. Pretending not to know anything, she started walking along the streets. Even though the place was huge, there was a sense of oppression wherever she went. The children wandering the streets all had cold expressions, and it was extremely quiet. She noticed many pillars standing tall with intricate carvings on them. They reached from the ground to the sky. All the pillars glowed faintly. Her eyes swept over them and she briefly counted 108 pillars. It was strange, they were all in odd positions. She had just arrived here and had no idea what these pillars were for, but she suddenly thought of Ling Yan. With his intellect, he would probably be able to tell at a glance what they were for. However, she could feel a headache coming on as she thought of his terrible martial arts skills. With his skills, she still didn't dare take him out into the battlefield in case he got heavily injured. Ning Luo, have you noticed anything? She asked. His expression was odd. I can't tell. I keep feeling like she is nearby but can't pinpoint the location. He couldn't make sense of the feeling as well. Little Yu Yun's aura seemed to be spread across the entire place and he could sense it everywhere. This meant he couldn't quite sense the exact location she was in. But I can feel that her aura is strongest near pillars, he said. Near the pillars? She could feel her head starting to throb as she looked at the pillars. There were 108 of them.